Chapter 3875. Nie Tian stared at Ling Huangji Shui, his heart filled with shock. Ling Huangji Shui's strength seemed to have increased in an instant. This was too strange. Bloodline power. At this moment, Fat Cat screamed in shock. Go to hell. At the same time, Qi Chenfeng roared and struck with his palm. A violent force rolled up a storm in the void and pressed down on Ling Huangji Shui. Be careful. Nie Tian's eyes trembled and he could not help but scream. Ling Huangji Shui frowned and moved in an instant. Her figure flickered strangely and avoided Qi Chenfeng's attack. When the crowd saw this scene, their expressions suddenly changed, and they were extremely shocked. Ling Huangji Shui's speed was too fast. It was unbelievably fast. It was really strange. How is this possible? Qi Chenfeng was stunned by the scene in front of him. He could not help but scream in horror. He was not far from Ling Huangji Shui. He attacked at such a close distance, but the latter dodged it. It was really strange. Puff! While he was in a daze, another blood-red sword light flashed across the void and another sword scar appeared on his face. You! Qi Chenfeng's eyes trembled and he screamed in horror. He looked at Ling Huangji Shui with fear that could not be concealed. He could not help but take a few steps back. Not only was Ling Huangji Shui extremely fast, but her attack was also swift and fierce. He could not react at all. Little girl, you deserve to die. At this moment, Mo saw this and roared. He struck out with his palm and pressed down on Ling Huangji Shui. Bang! However, his palm was broken by a sword intent. Then, a muffled sound was heard and he was sent flying. Puff! Mo steadied his body and wanted to say something, but he spurted out a mouthful of blood. His eyes trembled as he looked at Ling Huangji Shui in horror. The shock in his heart was indescribable. This woman's strength, how did she suddenly become so terrifying? The crowd was similarly shocked by the scene before them, and their gazes trembled without end. They looked at Ling Huangji Shui with horrified expressions, and they seemed to be extremely alarmed, as if they were looking at a monster. In their eyes, the current Ling Huangji Shui was indeed like a monster. Previously, many people had seen Ling Huangji Shui in action. Although it was very amazing, it was definitely not as abnormal as it was now. It seemed that after entering the Three Lives Ancestral Land, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's strength had improved qualitatively. She was no longer on the same level as the others. This was simply too strange, and no one could understand it at all. It should be noted that Ling Huangji Shui was only a warrior at the 6th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm, while her opponents just now, Qi Chenfeng and Mo, were both Saint Tianyi warriors, especially Qi Chenfeng, who was already at the peak of the 9th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm. He was only one step away from becoming a Heavenly Tribulation Saint King. Even so, Qi Chenfeng could not fight back at all in front of Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. How could the crowd not be shocked by such a strange scene? If you dare to move again, the next sword will fall on your neck. At this time, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said coldly. Her eyes were filled with cold intent as she stared at Qi Chenfeng. Qi Chenfeng sensed the cold killing intent in Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's eyes and could not help but gulp. He was so scared that his face turned pale, and he could not help but take a few steps back. Who else dares to provoke me? Then, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said coldly. Her cold eyes swept across the crowd. Everyone lowered their heads, not daring to look at her. Nie Tian frowned and looked confused. He secretly guessed in his heart, is it because of the Three Lives Ancestral Land? He felt that Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's strength had improved too much. This kind of improvement was definitely not something that could be brought about by one level of cultivation. The first thing he thought of was that there was something wrong with the environment here. After all, this was the Three Lives Ancestral Land. It was very normal for the environment to improve Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's strength. Nie Tian carefully sensed the aura in her body. At this time, Fat Cat reminded Nie Tian. Nietion's eyes narrowed. He used his divine sense to sense cold Phoenix Ji Shui. The latter's cold eyes trembled slightly. She had clearly sensed it, but she did not put up any resistance. This is... Nietion sensed cold Phoenix Ji Shui's aura. His eyes trembled and his expression became sluggish. He exclaimed in his heart, "Bloodline power!" He sensed a faint bloodline power in cold Phoenix Ji Shui's body. It was slowly awakening. Moreover, this bloodline power was very powerful. It shocked him quite a bit. Yes. Fat Cat nodded and said, "It is indeed a bloodline power. After she came to the Three Lives ancestral land, she seemed to have awakened some kind of bloodline power. Under the impact of this bloodline power, her strength had a breakthrough." This. Nietion's eyes narrowed. He could not help but shiver. Moreover, this bloodline power is slowly awakening and becoming stronger. Fat Cat continued, "It is estimated that in the next period of time, her strength will continue to improve, and it will improve very quickly." "Fat, do you know what bloodline power this is?" Nietion frowned and asked in a deep voice. "I don't know." Fat Cat shook his head and said, "I have seen countless bloodline powers, but I have never seen a bloodline power with such a powerful vitality. I am afraid that even your fiend god Origin Embryo or Rui Qianyu's 10 Annihilation Evil Woman does not have such a terrifying vitality." This. Nietion could not help but gasp when he heard Fat Cat's word. His expression changed. It seemed that after cold Phoenix Ji Shui came to the Three Lives ancestral land, her body had awakened a very terrifying bloodline power. In the next moment, Nietion calmed down and said in a low voice, "Little fatty, this bloodline power alone isn't enough to make Shui so terrifying, right?" Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's current strength was too terrifying. It was simply beyond Nietion's imagination. Perhaps even he would not be able to fight back in front of cold Phoenix Ji Shui. It's this space that has increased her strength. Fat Cat's eyes trembled slightly as he said in a deep voice, "Space." Nietion was stunned for a moment. His expression suddenly changed. His eyes emitted a blazing light as he observed the surroundings, but he did not find anything unusual. Nietion sensed carefully. Little Fat Cat said in a deep voice, its face cold and solemn. Nietion frowned. He immediately connected his divine sense with the demon fox of eternal night and sensed the surrounding space with the help of the demon fox's mental strength. Boundary. In the next moment, his expression changed and he exclaimed in his heart. At this moment, he sensed a boundary power in the space. Chapter 3876. A boundary. Nietion's eyes trembled slightly. He didn't expect that he was in a boundary at the moment. Even with his perception ability, he couldn't sense this boundary at all. Nietion, the boundary in front of you is not as simple as you think. At this time, Fat Cat's voice sounded again. There was a hint of fear in it, as if it was very afraid. "What do you mean?" Nietion was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise. "Nietion, how strong do you think Cher is now?" Fat Cat didn't answer directly, but asked back. "I don't know." Nietion shook his head and guessed. "Is she comparable to a heavenly tribulation king sage? From the way Leng Huang Ji Shui crushed Qi Chenfeng, she was at least comparable to a heavenly tribulation king sage. In my opinion, her battle strength is at least at the peak of a heavenly tribulation king sage." Fat Cat's eyes flickered and said, "If there is a peak of a heavenly tribulation king sage now, I'm afraid he is not her opponent." This. Nietion heard Fat Cat's words and couldn't help but tremble. He was speechless. He knew that Cher's battle strength had become stronger, but he didn't expect it to become so strong. A barrier could actually raise a martial artist's battle prowess by as much as 2 major realms. It was simply inconceivable. It should be known that a normal boundary could at most increase a warrior's battle strength by a few realms. Stronger ones could suppress the strength of other warriors. But this boundary in front of him had increased Ling Huang Jishue's battle strength by 2 realms. Such a terrifying boundary was really unheard of. No wonder Ling Huang Jishue could crush Qi Chunfeng and the others without even using her sword. Nie Tian, do you think this kind of barrier is normal? Little Fat Cat asked in a deep voice. It's not normal. Nie Tian shook his head and then thought of something. His expression changed and he asked in shock, "What is this boundary? How can it be so terrifying?" Fat Cat's eyes trembled and paused, as if she was trying to calm herself down. This boundary is more terrifying than you think, because this boundary covers the entire 3 lives ancestral land. It covers the entire 3 lives ancestral land. Nie Tian's eyes flickered with astonishment, and his face froze in shock. A barrier that enveloped an entire world. That was simply too terrifying, wasn't it? That meant that Ling Huang Jishue's battle strength had always been equivalent to that of a heavenly tribulation king sage. After a long while, when Nie Tian's expression eased a little, the little Fat Cat said, "As far as I can tell, this ward has perfectly merged with the 3 lives ancestral land. It's like an internal ward of the 3 lives ancestral land." This. Nie Tian sucked in a breath. His eyes trembled, and the shock in his heart was at its peak. This. Nie Tian sucked in a breath. His eyes trembled, and the shock in his heart was at its peak. He had never thought that a boundary could be this powerful. This boundary is only effective against the 3 lives race. It can greatly increase the 3 lives race's battle strength. It does not increase or suppress other cultivators. Fat Cat's eyes trembled slightly, and her face was full of worry. "If you run into Lian Jiufeng, you must be careful." Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly, and he nodded heavily. Since the boundary could increase Ling Huang Jishue's strength so much, it could also increase Lian Jiufeng's strength. If they were fighting in the 3 lives ancestral land now, Nie Tian wouldn't be Lian Jiufeng's match at all. If this were the 3 lives ancestral land, Nie Tian wouldn't be a match for Lian Jiufeng at all. "Let's go, Nie Tian." Ling Huang Jishue came to Nie Tian's side and said indifferently, "Nie Tian, let's go." At this time, Cold Phoenix Jishue came to Nie Tian's side and said lightly. Ling Huang Jishue walked at the front, and Nie Tian followed closely behind. Everyone else followed. Nie Tian knew nothing about the 3 lives ancestral land. He could only rely on Ling Huang Jishue to find out what he wanted to find. Ling Huang Jishue walked at the front, and Nie Tian followed closely behind. Everyone else followed. Nie Tian knew nothing about the 3 lives ancestral land. He could only rely on Ling Huang Jishue to find out what he wanted to find. They were standing at the entrance of a valley. "Are we going in?" Nie Tian asked with a frown when he saw Ling Huang Jishue stop. Ling Huang Jishue didn't say anything. Her pretty face was cold and focused. She seemed to be sensing something. With a puzzled expression, Nie Tian also unleashed his soul awareness to scan the valley. But to his disappointment, he couldn't sense anything. "Let's go," Ling Huang Jishue said solemnly. She took the lead and entered the valley. Nie Tian and the others immediately followed. After entering the valley, Nie Tian immediately felt a cold, murderous aura assaulting his face, causing his expression to change involuntarily, and he cried out in surprise in his heart. The chilling baleful aura was extremely dense. It was like a sharp blade, making him feel very uncomfortable. There seemed to be some sort of bloody aura within the baleful aura. It was extremely evil. Before entering the valley, Nie Tian had carefully sensed the place, but he couldn't sense the baleful aura at all. It was far too strange. "This place is so eerie. Let's go back." Everyone felt the baleful aura. Some were already frightened and wanted to retreat. "Ling Huang Jishue, Nie Tian, you're finally here." But at this moment, a deep and murderous voice resounded in the air. "Lian Jiufeng." Nie Tian's eyes shook violently when he heard the voice. he exclaimed in his heart. He couldn't be more familiar with the voice. It was Lai Yin Jiufeng. Rumble! As soon as Lai Yin Jiufeng finished speaking, a rumble rang out behind Nie Tian and the others. Then, a huge boulder fell from the sky and blocked the entrance to the valley. This! Everyone turned around and saw that the entrance was blocked. They paled in fear and were speechless. Lai Yin Jiufeng, get out here! Leng Huangji Shui shouted. A tremendous sword aura surged from her body and soared into the sky. The surrounding space trembled, and the entire valley seemed like it was about to collapse. Leng Huangji Shui, you're too naive. Do you really think that I'll share the supreme seal of the three-life race with you? However, Leng Huangji Shui only responded with a deep laugh. It was eerie and murderous. Now, enjoy the forbidden blood demon spirits I've prepared for you. Ha! Forbidden blood demon spirits. Leng Huangji Shui's face sank when she heard those words. Her eyes flickered with coldness. Boom! At this moment there was a rumble in the sky. Then, countless blood-colored clouds appeared and descended toward Nie Tian and the others. Chapter 3877. Boom! High up in the sky, monstrous waves of blood tumbled endlessly. Special runes condensed into blood-red ghostly faces. They were incomparably sinister, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they charged towards Nie Tian and the others. In an instant, everyone felt the bloody baleful qi rushing towards them. Their faces instantly turned lifeless. One could imagine how frightened they were. The baleful qi was so sinister and bone-chilling. Everyone could feel that their martial bodies seemed to have stiffened under the impact of the baleful qi. The baleful qi seemed to contain some kind of extremely frightening power, which had an extremely strong corrosive effect on martial bodies. Nie Tian's eyes slightly trembled. The impact of the baleful qi that penetrated into his bones was hard to bear, even for him. The bloody and cold murderous aura seemed to freeze his body, giving him the illusion that his flesh and blood had condensed into strange blood-colored ice crystals. Ah! As the rolling waves of blood fell, some of the weaker martial artists could no longer bear it and began to wail. Nie Tian frowned and suddenly turned around. He saw a martial artist dripping with blood. The flesh on his body seemed to have been peeled off, revealing his white bones. In the void, the smell of blood filled the air. It was extremely pungent when mixed with the baleful qi. Is this the forbidden blood demon spirit? Nie Tian's eyes slightly trembled. Seeing the blood-red ghostly face falling from the sky, he couldn't help but feel a little flustered. Damn it! On the other side, Leng Huangji Shui let out a low roar. The long sword in her hand suddenly stabbed out. The instant the sword intent burst forth, the sword's shadow whizzed out, directly colliding with the rolling waves of blood, forcibly blasting a huge hole in the waves of blood. Jia jia jia! Immediately, the blood-red ghostly face let out an ear-piercing howl, as if countless ghosts were wailing. Everyone, let's attack together and rush out! Nie Tian's eyes sank and he let out a low roar. Immediately after, the aura of his body crazily surged out, and a terrifying sword intent burst out. The sword's shadow was like a mad dragon, releasing a terrifying baleful qi, directly rushing towards the violent waves of blood. Rumble! High up in the sky, the violent roars were endless. Under the impact of the sword's shadows, the blood waves tumbled, but they still directly pressed down. Nie Tian's eyes trembled and his expression changed. In the Three Lives ancestral land, his battle prowess was several levels lower than Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's. Not even Ling Huang Jishui could withstand the power of the blood wave, let alone him. At this time, the blood waves were like raging waves, crazily falling down, enveloping all the martial artists. Nie Tian frowned. He immediately released his astral energy and activated his astral soul shield, barely managing to resist the blood-colored qi wave. However, the other cultivators were unable to resist the blood wave. They were instantly enveloped by the blood-colored ghost faces within the blood wave. Immediately, their flesh and blood were corroded by the baleful aura. They turned into walking skeletons with blood-colored runes circulating within them. Blood-forbidden demon spirit. Ling Huang Jishue's beautiful eyes trembled, and she couldn't help but speak in a low voice. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment, but he immediately understood. So this is the real blood-forbidden demon spirit. The strange runes within the blood wave devoured the cultivator's bloodline power, turning the cultivator into a blood-forbidden demon spirit that was like a walking corpse. Boom! At this moment, the martial artists who had turned into blood-forbidden demon spirits instantly went berserk. They directly attacked the normal martial artists. Nie Tian frowned. Sword intent crazily surged from all over his body. He brandished the sword of sky, and countless sword shadows recklessly attacked, forcibly destroying the blood-forbidden demon spirits. However, these demon spirits were basically immortal. Under the control of those strange runes, they continuously rushed over. Nie Tian felt the baleful aura in the air becoming heavier and heavier. Slowly, he even found it difficult to breathe. At this moment, most of the martial artists had been devoured by the blood waves and turned into blood-forbidden demon spirits. Only a dozen martial artists were still bitterly resisting. Lian Jiufeng, what are you trying to do? With a low roar, Nie Tian broke through the blood-forbidden demon spirit's attack and charged into the sky. The martial artists in front of him were all carefully chosen by Lian Jiufeng from Holy Rock Academy. The other blazing feather race martial artists were also geniuses. Did Lian Jiufeng bring these people into the ancestral land of 3 lives to turn them into blood-forbidden demon spirits? Nie Tian, you are still too naive. Lian Jiufeng's voice resounded in the sky. He said solemnly, you came to the ancestral land of 3 lives as sacrifices. You are only meaningful to me if you become blood-forbidden demon spirit. Damn it! Nie Tian let out a bellow as he tried to charge towards them. However, he found that even more blood-forbidden demon spirits were charging towards him. Torrential waves of blood surged in the void, giving him so much pressure that he almost couldn't breathe. So these martial artists were really just sacrificial lambs. In fact, even Nie Tian and Ling Huang Jishue had been prepared by Lian Jiufeng. Nie Tian never thought that Lian Jiufeng would be so treacherous and vicious. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the aura of the waves of blood grew even stronger. Space itself trembled, and the world itself trembled. The auras of the blood-forbidden demon spirits skyrocketed under the influence of the waves of blood. Oh no! Nie Tian frowned as he felt the pressure around him grow stronger and stronger. He cursed inwardly. If the blood-forbidden demon spirits grew stronger, even he wouldn't be able to endure it. Whoosh! At this moment, a blood-forbidden demon spirit struck out with a palm. A wave of blood immediately appeared and engulfed Nie Tian like a storm. Nie Tian's expression darkened slightly. He slashed out with his sword and shattered the wave of blood, but he was unable to shake the blood-forbidden demon spirit. What a powerful bloodline aura! Qin Lai steadied himself in shock. He could sense that the bloodline aura released by the blood-forbidden demon spirits was so powerful that even he was shocked. These blood-colored runes are absorbing the bloodline power of these martial artists and merging with them to form an even more terrifying bloodline power. Fat Cat's surprised voice rang out at this moment. Just what is Lian Jiufeng trying to do? Nie Tian roared angrily with a dark expression and a cold heart. Save me! At this moment, he suddenly heard a cry for help. He turned around and saw a martial artist surrounded by countless blood-forbidden demon spirit. He was on the verge of being devoured. Qi Chenfeng. Nie Tian's expression darkened when he saw that the martial artist was actually Qi Chenfeng. Save me! Qi Chenfeng also saw Nie Tian and spoke with difficulty. His eyes were filled with despair. Nie Tian frowned. Without any hesitation, he made his move. Chapter 3878. Boom! Nie Tian moved like lightning. He swung his sword and unleashed his sword intent. The unstoppable power shattered the blood-forbidden demon spirit. Boom! Qi Chenfeng's body shook and unleashed boundless flames. Scorching waves of fire crashed into the blood-forbidden demon spirits, temporarily freeing him. The blood-forbidden demon spirits seemed to be wary of the power of fire. However, the power of fire only pushed them back a little before they charged forward again. Stay together. Don't fight on your own. Nie Tian frowned and growled Ling Feng. Amen, Qi Chenfeng nodded. He took a step forward and arrived next to Nie Tian. Nie Tian had just saved his life. No matter how much he disliked Nie Tian, he had to rely on the latter to survive. The others gathered around Nie Tian when they heard his voice. Seeing that there were only 5 people by Nie Tian's side, his face couldn't help but darken as he thought to himself, only these few people are left? In the blink of an eye, only a handful of people were left. Nie Tian and the others huddled together and resisted the blood-forbidden demon spirit's attack. They could hold on for now. However, Nie Tian could sense that the fiendish blood aura in the air was growing thicker and thicker. Even if they huddled together, they could only hold on for a while. As time passed, they would not be able to escape the fate of becoming the blood-forbidden demon spirit. Nie Tian, I thought you were very capable. But it looks like you're just a piece of trash. Lai Yin Zhufeng's cold and mocking voice resounded in the sky. Nie Tian's expression was solemn. He did not say a word. He really did not know how long he could hold on. And you, Leng Huang Jishue? Lai Yin Zhufeng laughed coldly. So what if you're extraordinary in the ancestral lands? How long can you last against the blood-forbidden demon spirit? Leng Huang Jishue stood in the air. Sword intent flowed around her body like a storm. The waves of blood and the blood-forbidden demon spirits could not approach her. However, she had already tried several times, but she was still unable to break through the blood waves high in the sky. Even if she had extraordinary battle prowess, she would eventually be devoured by the blood waves if the stalemate continued. Nie Tian, find the forbidden blood eye. At this time, the cold phoenix Ji Shui suddenly looked at Nie Tian and said coldly, Forbidden blood eye? Nie Tian was stunned. He had no idea what it was. Moreover, something that even Leng Huang Jishue couldn't find, how could he possibly find it? Use the princess's tear. Subsequently, cold phoenix Ji Shui transmitted her voice over and said solemnly, The tear of a princess. Nie Tian's gaze trembled slightly, and his heart trembled. Only Princess Tear can sense the existence of the forbidden blood eye. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's voice sounded again. I'll help you block the blood wave and the forbidden blood demon spirit. Focus on sensing your surroundings. All right. Nie Tian's eyes darkened as he nodded. A few days ago, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui gave him the princess's tear. However, it was difficult for him to even sense the existence of the princess's tear. But at this time, he had to give it a try. Subsequently, Nie Tian no longer paid attention to anything else. He closed his eyes slightly and sensed his body with his divine sense. He began to search for the aura of the princess's tear. After a while, bean-sized beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. However, he still couldn't sense the existence of the princess's tear. The princess's tear had fused with his body, but there was no aura to be found. Damn it! The more anxious Nie Tian was, the more flustered he became. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat. Nie Tian, don't be anxious. Calm your mind and sense your body. At this time, Fat Cat's voice sounded. Okay. Nie Tian agreed. He took a deep breath and calmed down a lot. At this moment, torrential waves of blood, as well as countless forbidden blood demon spirits, continuously attacked, wanting to devour the last few cultivators. However, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's existence was like an insurmountable wall. She blocked all the attacks for Nie Tian and the others. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, how much longer can you last? At this time, Lai Yin Jiufeng's voice sounded again. He sneered. You and I may be members of the three-life race, but the path we walk is destined to be different. The three life races' supreme dual seals can only have one master, and that is me, Lai Yin Jiufeng. The legend of the three life races, undying and indestructible, will be revealed by me. And you, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, are fated to be a stepping stone on my path to legend. Ha ha! At the end, Lai Yin Jiufeng laughed madly. He was incomparably arrogant. Is that so? Cold Phoenix Ji Shui responded with a cold smile. She suddenly swung the sword in her hand, and a blood-colored sword immediately pierced the sky and tore apart the rolling waves of blood. Humph! Lai Yin Jiufeng sneered and said, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, I must admit that your talent, your bloodline, and your vein of 3 lives are indeed stronger than mine. That is why your current combat power far surpasses mine. But right now, you are just a turtle in a jar. Today, you will die. You will die here. In the 3 lives ancestral land, the stronger the vein of 3 lives was, the greater the improvement one would receive from the barrier. Lai Yin Jiufeng never thought that Cold Phoenix Ji Shui would be so powerful. He was shocked just by looking at her. The 3 lives ancestral land's barrier had greatly improved his strength, but it was clearly inferior to Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's. If he fought Cold Phoenix Ji Shui head-on right now, he would definitely be killed instantly. But that was no longer important. At most, it would make Cold Phoenix Ji Shui last a little longer. It definitely wouldn't change her fate. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui would definitely die here today. Lai Yin Jiufeng, the one who has the last laugh, is the victor, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said coldly. Her eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. You are very confident. Lai Yin Jiufeng sneered again and said, but in my opinion, your confidence is laughable. Is that so? Cold Phoenix Ji Shui responded with a sneer. At the same time, she swung her sword to drive away the waves of blood. She couldn't help but look at Nie Tian. Whether or not she could break through the blood waves blockade depended on whether Nie Tian could use the tear of the princess to find the eye of blood restriction. I can sense it. At this time, Nie Tian's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. His eyes couldn't help but tremble. He seemed very excited. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui saw Nie Tian's reaction and couldn't help but tremble. She couldn't hide the heat in her eyes. It's here. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He transmitted a message to Cold Phoenix Ji Shui and sent an image to her consciousness. Chapter 3879. Nie Tian raised his head to look at Ling Huang Jishui. He was waiting for her to destroy the Eye of Blood. Ling Huang Jishui stopped struggling. Lai Yin Jiufeng's voice rang out again. He said coldly, your struggle only makes this slaughter more interesting. Is that so? The corners of Ling Huang Jishui's lips twitched as she coldly replied. After that, her silhouette moved as sword intent gushed forth from her body. She stabbed out with her sword, causing sword shadows to howl out, akin to the beautiful afterglow of the setting sun, rushing towards the blood waves. Boom! Bang bang bang! In the next moment, the shadow of the sword fell. The waves of blood in the sky trembled before exploding and spreading in all directions. The Eye of Blood. Nie Tian's eyes trembled. He saw a crimson whirlpool floating where Ling Huang Jishui's sword had landed. It was releasing waves of blood. Without a doubt, the crimson whirlpool was the Eye of Blood. All the waves of blood had come from the Eye of Blood. How is this possible? Lai Yin Jiufeng's voice rang out. There was panic and shock in his voice. He never thought that Ling Huang Jishui would find the Eye of Blood. It's over, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said coldly. Her eyes trembled slightly, and sword will burst forth from her entire body. Her entire person was like a dazzling morning glow. Her long sword swept through the void, and suddenly, the air trembled slightly. A crimson sword shadow whizzed out, directly bombarding the forbidden blood eye. You want to destroy the Eye of Blood? Impossible! Lai Yin Jiufeng's voice rang out at almost the same time. Then, a giant hand of fire appeared in the sky and enveloped the Eye of Blood. Boom! Bang! In the next moment, the shadow of the sword landed on the giant hand of fire. There was an explosion in the air, and the giant hand of fire collapsed. However, the eye of the forbidden blood had been preserved. It was completely undamaged. Damn it! Lai Yin Jiufeng howled. The eye of blood trembled in the air, and began absorbing the waves of blood. Leng Huang Jishue frowned. She was stunned. In the blink of an eye, the blood wave in the sky was completely absorbed by the forbidden blood eye. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, I don't want to play with you anymore. With this bloodline power, it's enough for me to open the double seal. Then, Lai Yin Jiufeng's cold laughter rang in the air. A powerful palm force appeared and slammed down like a mountain. Leng Huang Jishue's eyes darkened slightly. She shattered the giant palm in the sky with her sword. However, she could no longer see the eye of blood when she looked at the sky again. Blazing Jiufeng's aura had completely vanished as well. At this moment, her body trembled slightly, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Cold Phoenix Snow. When Ye Tian saw that Leng Huang Jishue was injured, his figure flashed and appeared beside her. He asked anxiously, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Leng Huang Jishue's figure slightly retreated, then she lowered her head to look at the valley. Her charming face was extremely unsightly. Nye Tian looked down, and what he saw were piles of bones. After losing the support of the Eye of Blood, the blood-forbidden demon spirits had turned into a pile of bones. One had to admit that Lai Yin Jiufeng's methods were truly brutal. Hundreds of cultivators were slaughtered just like that. Leng Huang Jishue, are you really okay? Nye Tian looked at Leng Huang Jishue and frowned when he sensed that her aura was a little unstable. Leng Huang Jishue was strong, but after enduring the enormous pressure of the blood wave, she still found it difficult to endure. "I'm fine," Leng Huang Jishue replied coldly. "We need to find Lai Yin Jiufeng now. If he has opened the Supreme Double Seal, it'll be terrible." "Supreme Double Seal?" Nye Tian was stunned. He asked, "What Supreme Double Seal?" "The Supreme Double Seal of the Three Lives race, the Death Seal of the Heavenly Spirit and the Destruction Seal of the Earth. The Supreme Double Seal of the Three Lives race, the Death Seal of the Heavenly Spirit and the Destruction Seal of the Earth," Leng Huang Jishue said solemnly. She then took a step forward and tried to chase after Lai Yin Jiufeng, but her body trembled again, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She had used too much power just now. Coupled with the enormous pressure of the blood wave, she was extremely weak right now. "Leng Huang Jishue, you need to rest now." Nye Tian frowned and said solemnly, "I need to understand what the Supreme Double Seal of the Heavenly Spirit and the Destruction Seal of the Three Lives race is." Leng Huang Jishue took a deep breath and calmed down a lot. She knew that she couldn't force it. She could only recover first. At the same time, she looked at Nye Tian and said, "The Death Seal of the Heavenly Spirit and the Destruction Seal of the Earth are the two supreme seals related to the Three Lives race's undying and indestructible legend. The Death Seal of the Heavenly Spirit and the Destruction Seal of the Earth represent the undying soul and the indestructible body. In the Three Lives race's legend, the person who can fuse the two seals will become an undying and indestructible martial legend. Lai Yin Jiufeng came to the Three Lives ancestral land for the two supreme seals. After saying that, her eyes flickered with a strange light. "What about you?" Nye Tian frowned and asked, "Why did you come to the Three Lives ancestral land?" "To unravel a secret," Leng Huang Jishue said solemnly. She clearly didn't want to reveal too much to Nye Tian. Nye Tian frowned and his expression darkened. Lai Yin Jiufeng came for the Supreme Double Seal. Why did he kill so many people? After a while, Nye Tian's eyes narrowed and he asked, "The Eye of Blood Restriction." Leng Huang Jishue's expression darkened. The Eye of Blood Restriction is the key to opening the Supreme Double Seal. However, the Eye of Blood Restriction must absorb enough bloodline power to open the Supreme Double Seal. Nye Tian's eyebrows furrowed as he immediately understood. Lian Jiufeng brought so many martial practitioners to the Three Lives ancestral land to be sacrificed. The Eye of Blood restriction absorbed their bloodline power and used the Eye of Blood restriction to open the Supreme Double Seal. In fact, even Nye Tian was part of his plan. Just now, if Ling Huang Jishua hadn't found the Eye of Blood restriction, Nye Tian would have died here. Lian Jiufeng had always seen Nye Tian as a thorn in his side. Why couldn't he kill him while obtaining the Supreme Double Seal? However, Lian Jiufeng never thought that Nye Tian and Ling Huang Jishua could find the Eye of Blood restriction together. One had to admit that Lian Jiufeng's ambition was not small. He actually wanted to fuse the Supreme Double Seal and become an undying martial legend. Lian Jiufeng, since you want to kill me, how can I let you do as you wish? Nye Tian's eyes trembled slightly as he said cold. Nye Tian, let's go after Lian Jiufeng now. If we're too late, it'll be very difficult to find him, Ling Huang Jishua said solemnly. Don't worry, Lian Jiufeng can't escape. Nye Tian, however, smiled faintly. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he said, I've long since branded his soul on the 4 God Soul Stones. The 4 divine soul stones could imprint a martial practitioner's soul. They could be found even 10,000 kilometers away. Suddenly, Nye Tian's expression changed. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Chapter 3880. All of a sudden, Nye Tian sensed a strange force rushing into his body, causing his expression to change drastically. When he sensed that this strange force came from the princess's tear in his body, the shock on his face intensified. Nye Tian, what's wrong with you? Ling Huang Jishua sensed that something was wrong with Nye Tian, and her beautiful eyes sank as she asked in a shocked voice. Nye Tian's eyes darkened. Just as he was about to speak, he felt the strange force in his body skyrocketing. It was like a raging wave, causing him to feel a tearing pain in his martial body, rendering him speechless. Ling Huang Jishua's pretty face suddenly sank. She immediately sensed the strange force in Nye Tian's body and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Then, her eyes trembled, appearing to be pleasantly surprised. She didn't expect the princess's tear to take effect. She originally thought that after the princess's tear fused with Nye Tian, it would take some time for him to adapt to it before it could truly take effect. Unexpectedly, the princess's tear released a tremendous amount of power at this moment. Perhaps Nye Tian had used the princess's tear to sense the forbidden blood eye and unintentionally activated the princess's tear's power. What's wrong with him? Seeing Nye Tian in so much pain, Qi Qinfeng's expression sank and he couldn't help but ask. Nye Tian, hold on. This power won't hurt you. Ling Huang Jishue ignored Qi Qinfeng and looked at Nye Tian anxiously. She knew that the power released by the princess's tear was not to kill Nye Tian, but to increase Nye Tian's strength. But she was still a little nervous, worried that Nye Tian wouldn't be able to withstand the explosive power of the princess's tear. Even she herself didn't know how strong the power released by the princess's tear was. Under the impact of the tremendous power, Nye Tian's flesh and bones felt like they were being torn apart. His facial features were distorted, making him look hideous and terrifying. He never thought that the princess's tear would release such a terrifying power in an instant. Even though his martial body was strong, it was almost unbearable at this moment. What was even worse was that the power released by the princess tear was continuously increasing, and he could feel his body being torn apart even more terrifyingly. It was as if his flesh and blood were really being torn apart. When Ling Huang Jishua saw this scene, her beautiful eyes trembled slightly. She was extremely shocked. It seemed like the power of the Emperor's tear had exceeded her expectations. But at this moment, she couldn't help Nye Tian at all. He could only rely on himself. Then, a bloody and horrifying scene happened. Nye Tian's body was finally unable to withstand the impact of the strange force in his body, and began to crack bit by bit. Bloody wounds appeared on his body. Fresh blood instantly dyed his body red, making him look like he was bathed in fresh blood. He won't die, will he? Qi Chunfeng and the others were shocked and looked at Nye Tian with trembling faces. At this moment they were actually worried that Nye Tian would die just like that. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes were gloomy, completely ignoring Qi Chunfeng and the others. She stared at Nye Tian without blinking her eyes. It was obvious that she was extremely nervous and her heart was in her throat. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the strange force in Nye Tian's body was still increasing. It was like a raging wave, crashing against his martial body and pushing it to its limit. Nye Tian's body was dripping with blood and was badly mutilated. He looked like a puddle of flesh and blood, almost unrecognizable. But his aura was still there, and it was even more violent than usual. His body was surging with restless life force. Nye Tian, hang in there, you must hang in there. Ling Huang Jishua looked at Nye Tian with trembling eyes and prayed in her heart. As long as Nye Tian could hang in there, he would be safe. Roar! At that moment, Nye Tian's body suddenly trembled in a strange manner. Following that, a deep dragon roar rang out, and a violent dragon aura was released, violently battering the surrounding space. Ling Huang Jishue's beautiful eyes trembled and her figure instantly retreated. After she came to a stop, she turned to look at Nye Tian. Dragon Qi was swirling around him, and a dragon-shaped illusory figure appeared around him, protecting him like a guardian. At this moment, the strange force in Nye Tian's body was no longer as violent as before. It seemed to have calmed down a lot. It's a success. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes trembled slightly when she saw this scene. The Emperor's tear had successfully awakened in Nye Tian's body. Next, Nye Tian's aura began to slowly calm down. The strange force in his body was like a ferocious beast that had gone berserk, gradually calming down. After a while, the dragon qi around his body slowly dissipated, and the wounds on his body began to heal. This. Qi Chunfeng and the others looked at Nye Tian, horrified by what had happened in front of them. They all gasped and were completely speechless. And at this moment, the speed of recovery that Nye Tian showed also shocked them. It was hard to imagine how a divine master of the heavenly mandate realm could have a martial body that was so strong. Then, about a few minutes later, Nye Tian stood up. The blood stains on his body had been washed away, and he had regained his sharpness as before. It was as if the tragedy had never happened. Nye Tian, are you okay? Ling Huang Jishue immediately stepped forward and asked. Her eyes flickered, and she seemed a little nervous and excited. I'm fine, Nye Tian smiled faintly and said, I just feel that my martial body is much stronger than before. That's good. Ling Huang Jishue sensed Nye Tian's aura, and after making sure that he was fine, she nodded slightly. But her eyes were a little strange, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Nye Tian saw Ling Huang Jishue's reaction, but he didn't say anything. At this moment, he felt that his martial body had become stronger. It was not just a little bit but a qualitative leap. Although the injuries he had just suffered were not fatal, they were very serious. If it was with his previous martial body, it would have taken at least half a day to completely recover. But now, he only used a few minutes to completely heal the wounds on his body. Such a terrifying recovery ability shocked him. The strange force that awakened in my body, what is it? Why is it so terrifying? Nye Tian frowned and couldn't help but feel strange. But Ling Huang Jishue didn't seem to want to explain to him, so he didn't ask too much. At this moment, when Qi Chunfeng looked at Nye Tian, his eyes suddenly trembled and he exclaimed, Lord Nye Tian, you've broken through. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, and then his expression changed to surprise. He said in surprise, I really did break through. Chapter 3881. How is this possible? Nye Tian stood rooted to the spot for a few seconds before he came to his senses and asked in astonishment, How is this possible? It's because of the tear of the princess. The barrier inside the Three Lives ancestral ground has strengthened you as well, Leng Huang Jishue said calmly. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said with a calm face. Although the enhancement provided by the barrier isn't as great as the enhancement provided by the Three Life Clan's warriors, it's still very impressive. Amen. Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he nodded heavily. In that instant just now, he had discovered that his martial body had been stimulated by a power that made his entire body feel stronger than he had imagined. As it turned out, the barrier had strengthened him as well under the influence of the tear of the princess. However, the strength of the barrier's strengthening was clearly not as great as it had been with Leng Huang Jishue and Laiyan Jiufeng. Still, this kind of improvement was enough to excite Nie Tian. No wonder his martial body had recovered so quickly just now. He also found it strange. Even if his martial body had become stronger, it shouldn't have possessed such terrifying recovery abilities. Just imagine, a person who was badly mutilated could completely recover in a few minutes. This was too strange. As it turned out, the activation of the barrier had made Nie Tian's martial body stronger than he had imagined. Nie Tian, let's go find Laiyan Jiufeng now. Leng Huang Jishue clearly couldn't wait any longer. She said solemnly. Amen. Nie Tian's divine sense swept over Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's body, and after confirming that the latter was fine, he nodded. Then, Nie Tian followed Laiyan Jishue's soul aura and led the group in search. About half an hour later, the group arrived outside a valley. He's here. Nie Tian looked at the valley in front of him and said solemnly, Laiyan Jiufeng's soul aura shows that he's in this valley. Amen. Leng Huang Jishue nodded slightly. Then, she took a step forward and walked at the very front. When the group entered the valley, they discovered that it was unusually large. There were many broken statues in the valley. They were like giant beasts in slumber. They lay on the ground and released an ancient aura. There. Nie Tian did not pay attention to anything else. He focused all of his attention on Blazing Jiufeng's soul presence as he pointed at a cave in the deepest part of the valley. Leng Huang Jishue's eyes darkened. Her figure flickered as she flew towards the cave. Nie Tian and the others hurriedly caught up to him and arrived outside the cave. Only then did they realize that the cave in front of them was not naturally formed, but a huge man-made passageway. Let's go in. Leng Huang Jishue did not hesitate and stepped into the cave. Nie Tian followed closely behind Qi Chenfeng and the others. After everyone entered the cave, they immediately felt a bone-piercing chill, making them shudder. Nie Tian was very careful with every step he took. He was worried that there might be some hidden traps in the cave. Leng Huang Jishue didn't care about anything else and rushed straight ahead. The cave was very long and seemed to lead directly into the huge mountain. After walking for a few minutes, Nie Tian and the others finally saw the light in front of them. They sped up and arrived at a large hall. The spacious hall was thousands of meters tall. It was hard to imagine that such a majestic hall existed in the mountain. Come out, Blazing Jiufeng. Leng Huang Jishue stepped forward and growled. Her aura surged and she seemed unusually fierce. Leng Huang Jishue, I didn't think you would catch up so quickly. After she finished speaking, a low murderous voice resounded. Then, a familiar figure appeared. It was Blazing Jiufeng. Blazing Jiufeng, you really are here. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly when he saw Blazing Jiufeng's figure. He said coldly, Nie Tian, I'm surprised that you could last until now. Blazing Jiufeng's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked coldly at Nie Tian and said, But it doesn't matter now. The Supreme Twin Seals are about to open. You've come here to witness my undying legend. You've opened the Supreme Twin Seals? Leng Huang Jishue's eyes trembled when she heard Blazing Jiufeng's words. The Eye of Blood restriction has absorbed enough bloodline power. I've already used it to open the Supreme Twin Seal's first seal. Now, I just need to wait for the seals to be unsealed. Blazing Jiufeng smiled coldly. His eyes were burning with madness. Blazing Jiufeng, you madman! Ling Huang Jishue's eyes trembled and she growled. Nie Tian frowned. He didn't know why Ling Huang Jishue would react like that. Ling Huang Jishue, our Three Lives clan has been silent for too long. We can't waste the supreme twin seals that our clansmen created with all their effort. Blazing Jiufeng smiled coldly. His face looked evil and dark. Bastard! Ling Huang Jishue growled. Do you know that the power of the supreme twin seals is enough to destroy the entire world of Void Sieve? It can even threaten the surrounding saints' worlds. Of course I know. Blazing Jiufeng snickered. But as long as I fuse with the seals, even the destructive power of the saints' worlds won't be able to do anything to me. You lunatic! Ling Huang Jishue roared in a low voice. Her eyes were constantly trembling, and it was obvious that she was panicking. Nie Tian couldn't help but tremble when he heard their words. The shock he felt was obvious. He had originally thought that Blazing Jiufeng had opened the supreme twin seals of the Three Lives clan just to obtain the power contained within them. But he never thought that the release of the seals would release such great power. According to Ling Huang Jishue, the power released by the seals was enough to destroy the entire world of Void Sieve. Even the surrounding saints' worlds would be affected. Nie Tian had never imagined such an outcome. There were at least 10 billion lives in a saint's world. Blazing Jiufeng was willing to destroy a saint's world for the power of the seals. He really was a madman. Where are the supreme twin seals? At this moment, Ling Huang Jishue's eyes darkened. She asked darkly. Ling Huang Jishue, it's too late. You can't stop the release of the seals. Blazing Jiufeng smiled coldly. He looked playful. Where are the seals? Ling Huang Jishue growled again. A scarlet sword appeared in her hand. She slashed through the air, and a sword intent tore through the air. Spurt! Lian Jiufeng didn't even have time to react before a bloody gash appeared on his face. You! Blazing Jiufeng's eyes shook. He couldn't help but cry out. He couldn't say anything. He clearly hadn't expected Ling Huang Jishue's sword intent to be so strong. Chapter 3882. Lian Jiufeng, you still have one more chance to speak. Don't make a mistake. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes were filled with killing intent. Every word she said was filled with Lian. Nie Tian looked at Ling Huang Jishue and couldn't help but frown. Only now did he realize that Ling Huang Jishue's strength had increased to the 7th level of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Fat Cat was right. Ling Huang Jishue had awakened a powerful bloodline within her. Her strength was indeed increasing at an unimaginable rate. Lian Jiufeng's eyes trembled when he heard Ling Huang Jishue's words. His face froze for a moment. Unconcealable fear surged in his eyes. He could clearly feel the killing intent radiating from Ling Huang Jishue. If he didn't tell her the location of the Supreme Twin Seals, she really would kill him. Speak! The corner of Ling Huang Jishue's mouth twitched as she coldly spat out a single word. Instantly, the entire hall was filled with a terrifying killing intent. I'll speak. Lian Jiufeng's eyes darkened slightly as he spoke with a trembling voice. Then, he formed a seal with his hand. Runic power circulated in the air, and a stone wall at the back of the hall rumbled. A secret door appeared and slowly opened. Everyone turned around and looked at the dark door in unison. The secret door slowly opened. 2 terrifying runic whirlpools appeared in the dark space. They floated in the air like 2 evil eyes. However, these 2 evil eyes were not in the left and right, but up and down. Supreme Twin Seals. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes trembled when she saw the 2 whirlpools. She said solemnly, "Heavenly spirits and earthly fiends." The 2 whirlpools that had appeared in front of everyone were the Supreme Twin Seals of the Three Lives race, the Heavenly Spirit's Death Seal and the Earthly Fiend Destruction Seal. It was rumored that the Heavenly Spirits and Earthly Fiends seals contained an undying soul and an undying body. If one could fuse the 2 seals, they would become the legend of Undying and Undying, the number 1 legend of the ancient martial way. Lai Yin Jiufeng had come to the Three Lives ancestral land for the Supreme Twin Seals. Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he looked at the two seals. The shock in his heart was at its peak. He sensed that the two seals were like two bottomless black holes that contained unimaginable power. When his spiritual consciousness tried to perceive the two seals, he unexpectedly felt as if he had fallen into an endless abyss. He could not imagine what kind of terrifying power was contained in these two great seals. At this moment, he was even more convinced of Ling Huang Jishue's words just now. If the power of the Supreme Twin Seals were to erupt, it would be enough to destroy the entire illusory net world, and it would even endanger the few sacred worlds around it. At this moment, the Supreme Twin Seals were rotating slowly. Streams of runic power emitted a strange aura that filled the entire hall. Nie Tian and the others felt an indescribable pressure that they were unable to resist. Ling Huang Jishue frowned and hesitated for a moment. Then, she took a step forward and walked towards the Supreme Twin Seals. Boom! However, right at that moment, the Supreme Twin Seals suddenly released a majestic force, forming a huge ripple in the void that instantly surged out. Bang! Before Ling Huang Jishue could even react, her body trembled, and she was instantly sent flying. Share! Seeing this, Nie Tian's figure flashed, and he caught Ling Huang Jishue in his arms. I'm fine. Ling Huang Jishue steadied herself and said coldly. Then, her eyes stared straight at the Supreme Twin Seals. There was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. She was clearly injured. The Supreme Twin Seals only released a bit of its power, but it was actually able to directly injure Ling Huang Jishue. Ling Huang Jishue, don't waste your efforts. At this moment, Lai Yin Jiufeng laughed coldly. He said coldly, the first restriction of the Supreme Twin Seals has already been opened. You can't stop the opening of the Supreme Twin Seals. Lai Yin Jishue's eyes suddenly darkened. She suddenly turned to look at Lai Yin Jiufeng and said coldly, Lai Yin Jiufeng, if the Supreme Twin Seals open, I will kill you first. Kill me? Lai Yin Jiufeng laughed and said, I am your last remaining clansman. Will you really kill me? What do you think? Ling Jishue replied coldly. Then, she took a step forward and a sword intent whistled out. It left a glaring sword mark on Lai Yin Jiufeng's face once more. You! Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes trembled. He was immediately speechless. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes darkened. She ignored him and focused on the Supreme Twin Seals. Ling Huang Jishue, do you have a way to stop the Supreme Twin Seals? Nie Tian's eyes darkened slightly. He could not help but ask. I don't know. Ling Huang Jishue shook her head with a cold expression. Right now, it was difficult for her to even approach the Supreme Twin Seals, let alone stop them from opening. Such a powerful seal. There must be something that can suppress it. At this moment, Fat Cat's voice suddenly sounded. Suppress. Nie Tian went blank for a moment before his face darkened. The Supreme Twin Seals had the power to destroy the Saint's world. What could suppress it? Lai Yin Jiufeng, how long will it take to completely open the Supreme Twin Seals? At this moment, Ling Huang Jishue suddenly looked at Lai Yin Jiufeng and asked, What? Have you thought about it? Do you want to split the Supreme Twin Seals with me? Lai Yin Jiufeng raised an eyebrow and asked coldly. Answer my question, Ling Huang Jishue said coldly. Sword intent surged all over her body. 9 heavens! Lai Yin Jiufeng immediately felt a burning pain on his face and hurriedly said. There were a total of 9 seals on the Supreme Twin Seals, and each seal required an entire day to be unlocked. However, after the first seal was opened, there was no way to stop it. Lai Yin Jiufeng's original plan was to slowly wait for the Supreme Twin Seals to open. He did not think that Ling Huang Jishue and the others would catch up so quickly. 9 heavens! Ling Huang Jishue frowned. Her eyes trembled slightly. She seemed to be thinking about something. I hope I can find it. A moment later, her gaze trembled slightly. She seemed to be talking to herself. Find what? Nie Tian saw Ling Huang Jishue's reaction and frowned in confusion. Nie Tian, I'll leave this place to you. I'm going out for a bit. Ling Huang Jishue looked at Nie Tian and said hurriedly. Then, she left. Nie Tian was stunned. He did not know where Ling Huang Jishue was going. It seemed that she was looking for something. Little girl, don't bother looking. The 7 nights of samsara has long been destroyed. At this moment, a deep voice suddenly rang out in the hall. It was extremely strange. Chapter 3883. Ling Huang Jishue stared at the emptiness around her with trembling eyes. The shock in her heart grew even more intense. Panic actually appeared on her icy face. Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng were stunned as well when they heard the voice. They couldn't react for a long time. Little girl, are you very surprised? At this time, the deep voice sounded again, with a trace of playfulness and excitement. Who are you? How do you know about the samsara of 7 nights? Ling Huang Jishue's eyes darkened slightly. She calmed down a lot and asked, I is a member of the 3 life race. How can he not know about the samsara of 7 nights? The voice sneered. It seemed to come from all directions, making it impossible to tell where the voice came from. Impossible. Ling Huang Jishue frowned and said, The 3 lives' ancestral grounds have been sealed for a long time. There are no longer any living people inside. Who are you? Is that so? The voice sneered and said, The 3 life race has been exterminated a long time ago. How did the 2 of you survive until now? You know about the 3 life race. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes narrowed. She was clearly very shocked, but her voice calmed down. She bowed slightly and said, Senior, if you really are a member of the 3 life race, please show yourself. Little girl, do you think that if I was a normal existence, he would still be alive now? The deep voice laughed strangely and said, This old man has become a soulless soul since several million years ago. You are a soul. Ling Huang Jishue immediately understood. Her eyes trembled slightly and she said clearly, Senior, if you are a member of the 3 life race, please help me stop the double seals from activating. Little girl, even if you don't ask me, I am only a remnant soul. How can I stop the double seals from activating? The voice was extremely deep and said, Hurry up and leave this place. When the double seals activate, the entire 3 lives' ancestral grounds and even the entire illusory world will be instantly destroyed by the double seals. The power of the seals will destroy everything. If you run fast enough and leave the illusory world, you might be able to keep your lives. Run. Ling Huang Jishue's expression sank as she coldly said, At this point, your suggestion is for us to run? Little girl, what can you do if you don't run? With your strength, it's impossible for you to stop the activation of the double seals. The deep voice sneered, appearing sinister and evil. Senior, I'm also a member of the 3 lives race. I was the one who activated the supreme twin seals. Senior, with my physique, I should be able to fuse the power of 2 seals, right? It was at this moment Lai Yin Jiufeng spoke up. His eyes were trembling slightly, but they were burning with passion. Dual seal fusion? The deep voice laughed as if it had heard the funniest joke. It said coldly, Kid, you're underestimating the supreme double seal. You want to fuse 2 seals? What a joke. Laughable? Lai Yin Jiufeng was stunned for a moment before his expression darkened. He asked in astonishment, Can't I fuse 2 seals? The reason why he activated the supreme twin seals was to fuse them together. But now, the mysterious soul was saying that it was impossible for him to fuse the 2 seals. How could he not panic? Lad, the power contained within the supreme twin seals isn't something a martial artist can withstand. Following that, the voice sounded again, The power of the supreme twin seals is enough to destroy the sacred world. Even those experts at the peak of the heavenly martial saint ancestor might not have the power to destroy the sacred world. With your strength, trying to fuse the supreme twin seals will only bring about your own destruction. Lai Yin Jiufeng's face froze in shock when he heard the man's words. His mouth fell open, but he was unable to say anything. He had spent a great deal of effort to activate the supreme dual seals. But now all his efforts were in vain, and his life was even in danger. How could he accept this? "You brats, you've caused a huge disaster. Hurry up and run." A deep voice sneered and resounded in the hall. "We can escape, but Su Luo has so many warriors and ordinary people with him. Can they escape?" At this moment, Nye Tian, who had been silent all this time, spoke up. His eyes shone with a sharp light as he spoke in a cold voice. "Life and death are decreed by fate. You should think about yourself," the deep voice replied coldly. It was cold and indifferent. "Life and death are decreed by fate?" Nye Tian frowned and said sternly, "Are the countless lives in the entire virtual Luo realm only worth the words life and death are decreed by fate in your eyes? Lad, you're not from the Three Life clan at all. You shouldn't be here." The deep voice became cold. "No matter what you say now, you can't stop the activation of the Supreme Dual Seals. Senior, you can ignore the people of the virtual Luo realm." Nye Tian wanted to say something, but Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said, "Don't you care about the Three Life ancestral lands? Little girl, the Three Life ancestral lands shouldn't have existed a long time ago. It's just a dead world now. Even if it's destroyed, there's nothing to pity about," the deep voice said cold. He did not care at all. "Really?" Ling Huang Jishue's beautiful eyes trembled. "Could it be that you don't care about those souls in the 7 nights samsara?" As soon as her voice fell, the response was a surprised one. Then, the deep voice fell silent for a few seconds before saying, "Little girl, how do you know about the 7 nights of samsara? The 7-night reincarnation is a sacred artifact that the Three Life clan has been protecting for generations. After the Three Life clan's members die, their souls will enter the 7-night reincarnation." Ling Huang Jishue's beautiful eyes trembled slightly. Back then, the Three Lives clan was massacred. Most of the Three Lives clan members returned to the Three Lives ancestral land. However, the slaughterer did not spare the people of the Three Lives clan. He chased them all the way to the ancestral land of Three Lives and used a special technique to forcefully open the ancestral land of Three Lives. In the end, all the members of the Three Lives clan were buried in the Three Lives ancestral land. However, the souls of the Three Lives clan members have all entered the 7 nights reincarnation cycle. Furthermore, a soul-sealing technique has been used to imprison their souls. "You!" Without waiting for Ling Huang Jishue to finish speaking, the deep voice shouted in shock, "How do you know about this? Who are you?" What Ling Huang Jishue said was the Three Life clan's deepest secret. The voice clearly did not expect Ling Huang Jishue to know about these secrets. Chapter 3884. The Guardian of Samsara. The entire hall sank into a deathly silence. The atmosphere was incomparably strange. Ling Huang Jishue's expression was cold and solemn. Her eyes seemed to have sunk into an even deeper coldness. She was like an unmelting glacier, cold and murderous. "You really are the guardian of samsara." A long time later, the deep voice finally broke the silence. The shock was indescribable. The guardian of samsara? Lian Jiufeng was both shocked and puzzled. He froze in place. He had no idea what Ling Huang Jishue had just said. Moreover, he was a member of the Three Life race, and he had awakened the memories of 3 lives. However, there was nothing about the guardian of samsara in his memories. He had no idea that the Three Life race had a guardian of samsara. "Yes." Ling Huang Jishue nodded slightly and said, "Now, can you hand over the 7 nights of samsara?" "How is this possible?" As soon as she finished speaking, the void trembled slightly. Then, an illusory figure of a spirit appeared and stood in mid-air. The face that could be vaguely seen was filled with extreme surprise and shock. "If you don't believe my identity, you can sense it for yourself," Ling Huang Jishue responded gravely. She was not surprised by the appearance of the soul. Her identity was indeed the guardian of samsara of the Three Life race. The so-called guardian of samsara was the person who guarded the 7 Knights of Samsara. The 7 Knights of Samsara was the sacred artifact of the 3-life race. The souls of all members of the 3-life race would enter the 7 Knights of Samsara after death. Moreover, those whose souls passed the test of samsara in the 7 Knights of Samsara could be reborn. However, every member of the 3-life race only had one chance to be reborn. The guardian of samsara was an exception. Her soul fused with the 7 Knights of Samsara and could be reborn continuously. In other words, the guardian of samsara was an existence with an indestructible soul. It could be said that she was an immortal existence. When the 3-life race was destroyed, the souls of all members of the 3-life race entered the 7 Knights of Samsara. The Samsara protector sensed that the 3-life tribe was facing a terrifying and cruel enemy, so she made a shocking decision. She used her own soul power to seal the 7 Knights Samsara, and at the same time, all the souls within the 7 Knights Samsara. In this way, the members of the 3 Lives clan would not be able to reincarnate. However, their souls would also be sealed and enter a state of dormancy. If the 7 Knights Samsara was unsealed one day, these souls would be unsealed as well. At that time, the 3-life tribe would have a new lease of life. This was the last thing that happened when the 3-life clan was destroyed. Only 2 people knew about it. One was the clan leader of the 3-life clan at that time, and the other was the Samsara guardian. This divine soul was none other than the 3 Lives clan's patriarch, Ghost Father Ling Yi. Then, Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's identity was self-evident. Samsara guardian. I want to see your palm, Ghost Father Ling Yi said in a deep voice. His eyes couldn't help but tremble. The reason his divine soul was able to exist until now was because the Samsara guardian had used a strange method to imprint his divine soul onto the 7 Knights Samsara, turning him into a special Samsara guardian. The Samsara guardian herself had used up a lot of soul power to seal the 7 Knights Samsara, causing her soul to separate from the 7 Knights Samsara. Ghost Father Ling Yi thought that the Samsara guardian was dead, but he didn't think that she would live until now. Moreover, she had appeared in front of him with a different appearance. Look! Cold Phoenix Ji Shue raised her palm and pointed it at Ghost Father Ling Yi. Nie Tian's eyes darkened slightly. He saw that Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's palm was white and flawless. There was nothing there. 7 Knights Samsara seal. However, Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes shook when he saw Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's palm. He said in shock, "You really are the Samsara guardian." This. Lian Jiufeng was confused. Just like Nie Tian, he didn't see anything on Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's palm. Cold Phoenix Ji Shue withdrew her palm and said solemnly, "Lord Patriarch, you should hand over the 7 Knights Samsara now." At this moment, a deeper and more distant memory awakened in her mind. She remembered Ghost Father Ling Ye's identity. "Guardian, do you know what your responsibility is?" Ghost Father Ling Ye's expression darkened as he asked in a cold voice. "Protect the 3-life clan." Cold Phoenix Ji Shue replied solemnly. "Then why do you still want to stop the dual seals?" Ghost Father Ling Yi frowned, his expression cold. "Lord Patriarch, I know what you're thinking, but your method won't work." Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's eyes darkened slightly. She said, "After the dual seals are activated, they can indeed absorb a great amount of energy. However, this amount of energy isn't enough to open the 3-life ancestral land seal. It's impossible for you to create a new home for the 3-life clan." "Why is it impossible?" Ghost Father Ling Ye's expression darkened. He growled, "The 3-life ancestral land is originally a multi-layered world. As long as the dual seals absorb the energy of the entire illusory Civ realm, it will definitely be able to open a deeper seal. Once a deeper world appears in the 3-life ancestral land, the people of the 3-life clan will be reborn." As he spoke, Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes trembled with a fanatical look. Nie Tian couldn't help but frown when he heard the conversation between the two of them. He was shocked. It seemed that the three-life ancestral land wasn't as simple as he thought it was. There were still seals and a world inside. It turned out that the three-life ancestral land was a different space. It was a multi-layered world with multiple seals. Every time a seal was opened, a deeper world would appear. Ghost Father Ling Yi wanted to borrow the power of the supreme dual seals to open the seal in the three-life ancestral land. He wanted to use this to open a deeper world and create a new home for the three-life clan. As long as the three-life ancestral land opened a new world, the seal on the soul of the seven nights samsara would automatically be undone. The people of the three-life clan would then be reborn. However, doing so would undoubtedly sacrifice the people of the entire illusory Civ realm. Moreover, if the power of the supreme dual seals was stronger when they were opened, it might even cause a chain collapse of the sacred world. At that time, it wouldn't just be the illusory Civ realm that would be destroyed. Dozens or even hundreds of sacred worlds would be destroyed together. Such a serious consequence was unimaginable. Lord Clan Leader, you don't understand the seven nights samsara at all. Leng Huang Jishu said in a deep voice. When the three-life ancestral land opens a new world, the seven nights samsara will indeed be unsealed. However, at the same time, the sealed souls will also disappear. Therefore, if you open the dual seals, even if the three-life ancestral land really opens a new world, it will be a world without any vitality. And you will be the person who personally destroys the last hope of the three-life clan. Chapter 3885. Leng Huang Jishue's eyes slightly trembled. A strange light surged in her eyes as she stared at Ling Yi. Guardian, why should I believe your words? Ling Yi calmed down a little, but his expression was a little hesitant. He was doubting Leng Huang Jishue. As the guardian of samsara, I want to see the revival of the three-life clan more than you do. Leng Huang Jishue frowned and said in a deep voice, but the opening of the double seals is absolutely not the revival of the three-life clan, but the complete destruction of the three-life clan. But the double seals have already been opened. You can't stop it. Ling Ye's eyes suddenly trembled as he said coldly. For the revival of the three-life clan, he did not hesitate to sacrifice the entire Void Luo realm. And now, seeing that his plan was about to succeed, how could he be willing to give up? Indeed, he did not understand the seven nights samsara better than the guardian of samsara, but he did not believe that the seven nights samsara would really destroy all the souls within. In the seven nights samsara, only those who could not pass the test of samsara would have their souls destroyed. When the seal on the seven nights of samsara was lifted, would it really cause all the souls inside to disappear? Lord Patriarch, do you really want to gamble with the last hope of the three-life clan? Leng Huang Jishue coldly stared at Ling Yi as if she did not hear Ling Ye's words. Ling Ye's eyes slightly trembled, and his expression changed. Leng Huang Jishue was right. The seven nights samsara was indeed the last hope of the three-life clan. If what Leng Huang Jishue said was true, when the seven nights samsara was unsealed, all the souls within would disappear. That would also mean that the entire three-life clan would be completely destroyed. This step was indeed a gamble. Moreover, it was a shocking gamble. He, Ling Yi, was the lord of the three-life clan, but could he afford to gamble on this? Lord Patriarch, I promise you that I will definitely resurrect the people within the seven nights samsara. Leng Huang Jishue's cold eyes slightly trembled when she saw that Ling Yi was no longer speaking. Promise? Ling Ye's eyes sank as he coldly asked, what guarantee do you have? In the name of the guardian of samsara, with my martial will, with my blood, with everything I have, I swear that I will definitely revive the people of the seven nights samsara. Leng Huang Jishue's eyes shone brightly. She suddenly stretched out her palm, and blood gushed out from her palm. She made a blood oath and said heavily, If you can't do it, then I'm willing to suffer endless heavenly tribulations and fall into hell for eternity. Ghost Father Ling Ye's pupils suddenly shrank. He clearly didn't expect that cold Phoenix Ji Shui would actually make such a solemn vow. But his face was calm and he didn't say anything. Lord Patriarch, do you think that I, as the guardian of Samsara, would harm the Three Lives clan? Ling Huang Jishue's gaze trembled slightly as she spoke again. Protector, this patriarch wants to ask you. When the Three Lives clan was annihilated, do you know who our enemy was? At this time, Ghost Father Ling Yi suddenly raised his head to look at cold Phoenix Ji Shui and asked solemnly. The Emperor of the Underworld is just a chess piece. The person behind him is the true culprit behind the Three Life clan's extermination. Ling Huang Jishue's cold eyes trembled slightly as she said in a deep voice. You actually know. Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes trembled, and he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. He clearly didn't expect that cold Phoenix Ji Shui would actually know the truth behind the Three Lives clan's annihilation. When Ye Tian heard the names of their opponents, he was also stunned for a moment. He was quite surprised in his heart. He had always thought that the Three Life clan had been destroyed by the Emperor of the Netherworld. Moreover, the Netherworld Emperor had personally admitted that he had exterminated the Three Life clan in order to reawaken the heaven-punishing demon heart. He had needed the power of the Three Life clan's bloodline. But now, it seemed that things weren't that simple. Behind the Emperor of the Underworld, there was someone even more powerful. Chief, I think you know better than me how powerful the person behind the Underworld Emperor is. Ling Huang Jishui frowned and said solemnly, let's take a step back. Even if you start the double seals now and open the deeper world of the Three Lives ancestral land, and the seven-night samsara cycle can indeed revive the people of the Three Lives clan. Do you think such a huge commotion can be hidden from those people? The Three Lives ancestral land, the double seals, and even the seven-night samsara cycle are all related to that hidden force. If they know that the people of the Three Life clan are still alive, will they let the Three Life clan go? As she said this, Ling Huang Jishue's eyes faintly surged with coldness. It was the cold, killing intent of an avenger. This. Ling Ye's eyes trembled. He immediately fell silent and didn't speak for a long time. Lai Yin Jiufeng watched from the side. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He never thought that the Three Life clan and the Emperor of the Netherworld had such a shocking secret behind them. A long time later, Ling Ye's eyes darkened. He looked at Ling Huang Jishui and asked, Guardian, how do you plan to stop the double seals? Use the power of the seven-night samsara cycle to forcefully stop the double seals, Ling Huang Jishui said seriously. And then? Ling Ye's eyes trembled and he continued to ask. And then merge the double seals into a person's body. Ling Huang Jishue's eyes trembled slightly and she said solemnly. Who? Ling Yi frowned and suddenly looked at Lai Yin Jiufeng. He sneered and said, Him? Me? Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes trembled when he saw Ling Yi suddenly looking at him. He said in surprise, I can merge the double seals. Of course not. Ling Huang Jishui sneered and said, He may be a member of the Three Life clan, but he only has himself in his heart. He won't change for the Three Life clan. Moreover, he hasn't completely recovered the memories of his 3 lives. He doesn't know who he is. Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes darkened when he heard Ling Huang Jishue's words. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Ling Huang Jishue said that he didn't know who he was. What did she mean? Ling Huang Jishue, what are you saying? Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes trembled in shock and he asked coldly. Could he be? Ling Ye's eyes trembled in shock. He looked at Lai Yin Jiufeng and froze. He couldn't say anything. Who am I? Lai Yin Jiufeng's expression changed and he asked in surprise. It's best if you don't know who you are right now. Ling Huang Jishue glanced at Lai Yin Jiufeng and said with a cold smile. Lai Yin Jiufeng was stunned. He was completely petrified. At this moment, a rumbling sound reverberated in his mind, as if an indescribable divine sense was attacking his soul. He had no idea what was going on. Chapter 3886. Lai Yin Jiufeng was dumbfounded and couldn't react for a long time. Protector, where is the other person? Ling Yi ignored Lai Yin Jiufeng and asked Ling Huang Jishue. He's dead, but his soul has returned to the 7 nights of samsara. Ling Huang Jishue nodded slightly and said solemnly. The other person? Nie Tian couldn't help but frown when he heard this. He thought, could it be 7 kills? What happened in front of him shocked both Lai Yin Jiufeng and him. He never thought that so many things were hidden behind Ling Huang Jishue and the 3-life race. It seemed that the destruction of the 3-life race wasn't as simple as he thought. The Emperor of the Underworld was already an expert who stood at the peak of the world, and there was an even stronger force behind him. It was unimaginable just how strong this force was. He has fused with the heaven-punishing demon heart, so he can't fuse with the double seals. At this time, Ghost Father Ling Yi looked at Icy Phoenix Ji Shui and his gaze trembled slightly. Protector, it seems like you want to merge the 2 seals, right? Me! Ling Huang Jishue shook her head and said with a smile, the double seals must be suppressed by the 7 nights of samsara, so fusing the double seals must also fuse with the 7 nights of samsara. My soul power is still sealed in the 7 nights of samsara. If I fuse the double seals, the soul power in the 7 nights of samsara will return to my body. When the 7 nights of reincarnation is unsealed, the souls inside will begin to revive. If that's the case, it'll definitely alarm that power. It will bring about another apocalypse for the 3-life race. Do you want to see that happen? This. Ling Ye's expression flickered slightly as he turned to look at Nie Tian in the distance and said in a grim voice, don't tell me that you want this outsider to fuse with the 3-lives race's 2 supreme seals and their sacred relic. It can only be him. Ling Huang Jishue nodded and said, he is the one I have chosen, the master of the double seals. Protector, watch your words. Ling Ye's eyes shook and said, you want an outsider to fuse with the double seals? This is absolutely impossible. Why not? Ling Huang Jishue's cold eyes sank slightly. She said, does the 3-life race have a rule that outsiders can't fuse the supreme dual seals? The 3-lives clan doesn't have a rule that forbids outsiders from fusing the supreme twin seals. Ghost Father Ling Ye's expression was extremely gloomy. He looked at Nie Tian with a cold gaze and said in a deep voice, however, I will never bet the future of the 3-life tribe on an outsider. He abruptly looked at Lai Yin Jiufeng and said, I would rather let him fuse the twin seals than let an outsider fuse them. Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's face was as gloomy as water, without much of a ripple. She was not surprised at all by Ling Ye's reaction. After all, the supreme twin seals and the 7 nights samsara were extremely important to the 3-lives tribe. Especially the 7 nights reincarnation, which imprisoned the souls of the 3-lives clan members. It was the last hope for the revival of the 3-lives clan. Ghost Father Ling Yi knew nothing about Nie Tian. How could he be at ease when he placed the hopes of the entire clan on a stranger? Lord Patriarch, we have no other choice but him. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said in a deep voice. If you are worried, we can conduct the Heaven's Test right now. Heaven's Test? Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes shook in shock. He hadn't expected Cold Phoenix Ji Shui to suggest this. Heaven's Test? At the side, Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng's expressions changed at the same time as they exclaimed in surprise. They had no idea what the Heaven's Test was. Alright. Ghost Father Ling Yi was silent for a few seconds before finally speaking. He pointed at Lai Yin Jiufeng and said, he will take the test as well. Alright. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui nodded slightly and said, let Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng undergo the Heaven's Test together. Whoever is more suitable for the Supreme Twin Seals will fuse with the Supreme Twin Seals. Amen. Ghost Father Ling Yi nodded heavily, but he looked at Nie Tian with undisguised disgust. It was obvious that he wanted Lai Yin Jiufeng to pass the Heaven's Test. Even if he knew that Lai Yin Jiufeng was an unscrupulous person, the latter was still a member of the 3-life race. he was more trustworthy than a stranger. Moreover, he believed that Lien Jiufeng would definitely defeat Nie Tian. There had never been an outsider who could defeat a member of the three-life race during the Heavens test. Nie Tian, Lien Jiufeng, come over. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui swept her gaze across the two, and said indifferently. Nie Tian and Lien Jiufeng looked confused, but they still walked over. The two came to Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's side with nervous expressions. They didn't know what to do next. Lord Patriarch, can we begin? Cold Phoenix Ji Shui took a deep breath and asked Ghost Father Ling Yi. Amen. Ghost Father Ling Yi nodded. He didn't waste any words. All right. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui agreed. Then, 2 runes surged out of her palm. She turned her palm in the air, and the 2 runes surged out and enveloped Nie Tian and Lien Jiufeng. Nie Tian and Lien Jiufeng couldn't help but panic when they saw this. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui looked at the two and said indifferently, "Don't be nervous. You don't need to do anything. Just stand." The two nodded and watched the power of the runes surging out of their bodies. At this moment, Nie Tian felt a strange power appear in his body. It was like an invisible hand that constantly stroked his yuan meridians. It was a very strange feeling. It was a little illusory, but it was also very real. Lien Jiufeng was also confused, but he didn't say anything. A moment later, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui withdrew the 2 runes and gave them to Ghost Father Ling Yi. Ghost Father Ling Yi took the runes and felt the aura within them. His face slowly turned into shock. In the end, he stiffened and couldn't speak at all. Lord Patriarch, what are the results of our test? Lien Jiufeng couldn't help but frown when he saw Ghost Father Ling Yi's reaction. He asked anxiously, "How can this be? How can this be? How can this be?" Ghost Father Ling Yi didn't seem to hear him at all. He muttered to himself in shock. Nie Tian frowned. He didn't know what was going on. Lord Patriarch, this is the result. You must accept it even if you don't believe it, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui said indifferently after Ghost Father Ling Yi had calmed down a little. Ghost Father Ling Yi's eyes suddenly trembled. He looked at Nie Tian and said solemnly, "You are an outsider. How can you get the result of the 9th level of the Heaven Realm?" Chapter 3887. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui looked at Nie Tian with a gloomy gaze, but she could not hide the trace of excitement in her heart. She had not expected Nie Tian to obtain a 9th level Heaven rank result in the Heaven Samsara test. The Heaven Samsara test was a unique bloodline test of the 3-life race. Its purpose was to test the compatibility of the 3-life race's martial practitioners with the Supreme Twin Seals. In the history of the 3-life race, they had always wanted to find someone who could fuse the Supreme Twin Seals, but they had never found one. The results of the Heaven Samsara test were divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. Each level was further divided into 9 levels. The first level of the Yellow rank was the weakest, and the 9th level of the Heaven rank was the strongest. If one wanted to fuse the Supreme Twin Seals, the result of the Heaven Samsara test had to be at least the 6th level of the Heaven rank. The 3-life race had never produced a martial practitioner above the 6th level of the Heaven rank. As for outsiders, most of them obtained the Heaven Samsara test. Only a small number of martial geniuses could reach the Profound rank. As for Nie Tian, as an outsider, he had obtained the best result in the Samsara Heaven test, which was simply unimaginable. This is impossible. This is impossible. At this time, Ghost Father Ling Yi's eyes shook. He suddenly looked up at Nie Tian and said cold, "You are an outsider. How can you obtain a 9th level Heaven rank result?" Nie Tian frowned and did not speak. He did not know anything from beginning to end. He did not even understand what the Heaven Samsara test was. But from Cold Phoenix Ji Shui and Ghost Father Ling Yi's reactions, the Heaven Samsara test seemed to indicate that he was the most suitable person to fuse the Supreme Twin Seals. He himself was shocked by the result. Logically speaking, Lien Jiufeng was a member of the 3-life race. He should be more suitable for the Supreme Twin Seals. Actually, Lai Yin Jiufeng's result was already very good. He had reached the 5th level of the Heaven rank and was only 1 level away from being able to fuse the Supreme Twin Seals. However, compared to Nie Tian, he was far from being a match for him. Lord Patriarch, the results of the Heaven Samsara test are right there. Are you still going to object? Cold Phoenix Ji Shui looked at Ghost Father Ling Yi and asked. Something's wrong. However, at this moment, Ghost Father Ling Yi seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze towards Nie Tian could not help but tremble. His expression also changed, and he said in shock, "Why do you have the tear of a princess in your body?" The Emperor's tear. Ghost Father Ling Yi instantly understood why Nie Tian could reach the 9th level of the Heaven stage. It was because of the tear of the princess. But this discovery made him even more shocked. Because the Emperor's tear was the same as the 7-night reincarnation, it was also a sacred object of the 3-life race. How could an outsider like Nie Tian possess the tear of a princess? It's you. In the next instant, Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes darkened. He abruptly looked at Ling Huang Ji Shui and said in a deep voice, "You gave him the tear of princess. Who is he?" "I didn't give him the princess's tear. It was the princess's tear that chose him." Ling Huang Ji Shui's beautiful eyes trembled slightly as she said indifferently, "What do you mean?" Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes darkened as he asked in a cold tone, "Try to sense if the Emperor's tear is changing in his body." The corner of Ling Huang Ji Shui's mouth twitched, her face indifferent. Ghost Father Ling Yi was stunned for a moment. Then, he used his divine sense to sense Nie Tian, and his face gradually became filled with shock. In the end, he was completely speechless. Ling Huang Ji Shui, what happened to him? Nie Tian frowned. Seeing how shocked Ghost Father Ling Yi was, he couldn't help but frown and ask. "It's nothing." Ling Huang Ji Shui shook her head slightly and did not say anything else. "Lord Patriarch, do you now believe that he is the most suitable person to fuse with the Supreme Dual Seals?" After a while, the Cold Phoenix Ji Shui waited for Ghost Father Ling Yi to calm down a little before she said indifferently, Ghost Father Ling Yi's face darkened, as if he was unwilling to admit it, but he still nodded his head in the end. Seeing this, Nie Tian became even more confused. Just what did Ghost Father Ling Yi sense in his body that made his attitude change? Nie Tian, since the Emperor's tear and the Supreme Dual Seals have chosen you at the same time, I have nothing to say. Moments later, Ling Yi, the Ghost Father, said to Nie Tian with a grim look in his eyes, "But you have to remember that now that you've merged with the 2 Supreme Seals, you'll have to shoulder the responsibility of reviving the 3 lives race." Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He glanced at Ling Huang Ji Shui and nodded. "Lord Patriarch, what do you mean by this?" At this time, Lai Yin Jiufeng took a step forward and shouted, "Are you really going to let an outsider fuse with the Supreme Dual Seals?" "This is the choice of the Supreme Dual Seals," Ghost Father Ling Yi replied solemnly. His trembling eyes made him look incredibly determined. Stunned, Lai Yin Jiufeng couldn't help but look at Ling Huang Ji Shui. The latter's expression was even more determined than Ling Yi's. At this time, no matter how unwilling he was, he had no choice but to accept the fact that the Supreme Dual Seals belonged to Nie Tian. "Lord Patriarch, hand over the 7 Knights of Samsara." Ling Huang Ji Shui didn't waste any time and asked for the 7 Knights of Samsara. Ghost Father Ling Yi nodded and released a wave of soul power. A stone wall in the distance shook and a stone door opened. A black whirlpool appeared. 7 Knights of Samsara. Ling Huang Ji Shui couldn't help but cry out when she saw the black whirlpool. She used to be the guardian of Samsara and had guarded the 7 Knights of Samsara for countless years. Now that she saw the 7 Knights of Samsara again, she felt as if the world had changed. Guardian, the first restriction of the Supreme Dual Seals has been opened. Use the 7 Knights of Samsara to suppress the 2 seals. Ghost Father Ling Yi stretched out his hand, and the 7 Knights of Samsara surged out. It turned into a black two-headed snake in the air. The more restrictions the supreme dual seals opened, the more powerful they became. With Nye Tian's strength, it was already his limit to endure the first restriction of the supreme dual seals. If the second restriction was opened, he wouldn't be able to endure it at all. Yes. Linghuang Jishua nodded. She immediately moved and took the 7 Nights of Samsara. Then, she released the power of her bloodline and poured it into the 7 Nights of Samsara without any hesitation. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed when he saw this. He was shocked. He didn't think that Linghuang Jishua would use the power of her bloodline to activate the power of the 7 Nights of Samsara. A moment later, the 7 Nights of Samsara began to release black runes that surged in the air. It was extremely strange. What was even more strange was that these runes didn't have any aura. There wasn't even the slightest ripple in the air. Chapter 3888. The black twin-headed snake shrouded over and directly covered the supreme twin seals. Nye Tian could not help but tremble. He could not hide the excitement on his face. He did not know what was going to happen next. However, what happened next was unexpectedly calm. Under the influence of the twin-headed snake, the aura of the supreme twin seals began to slowly weaken. The ripples of Yin energy in the air also gradually disappeared. Very good. Linghuang Jishua smiled faintly. She was clearly very satisfied. Nye Tian was confused. He did not think that the process of 7 Nights Samsara suppressing the supreme twin seals would be so peaceful. It was hard to imagine that the supreme twin seals, which possessed such great power, would be suppressed so calmly. Good technique. At this time, Fat Cat could not help but exclaim. Suppressing the power of the supreme twin seals is indeed impressive. What do you mean? Nye Tian was stunned. He was puzzled. Fat Cat laughed and explained. The supreme twin seals are extremely powerful. Although 7 Nights Samsara is a holy artifact, it is almost impossible to suppress the power of the supreme twin seals by force. 7 Nights Samsara only fused a strange power into the supreme twin seals, triggering the power of the supreme twin seals to suppress each other. Nye Tian heard Fat Cat's words and could not help but tremble. He was very surprised. The supreme twin seals were too powerful. 7 Nights Samsara triggered the supreme twin seals to suppress each other. This method of suppressing the supreme twin seals was really ingenious. After about half an hour, 7 Nights Samsara and the supreme twin seals fused together perfectly, successfully suppressing the activation of the supreme twin seals. Success! Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes trembled when he saw this. He exclaimed in surprise. Although he had already expected this result, he did not think that everything would go so smoothly. Moreover, Linghuang Jishua's method of controlling 7 Nights Samsara was far beyond his expectations. It was too amazing. Lai Yin Jiufeng watched from the side with a gloomy expression. He seemed to be thinking about something. Nye Tian, are you ready? At this time, Linghuang Jishua looked at Nye Tian and asked solemnly. Yeah. Nye Tian nodded, his face filled with confidence. At this moment, he was very excited. After all, he was going to fuse the supreme twin seals of the 3 Lives race next. Moreover, there was also the 3 Lives race's sacred item. Let's begin. Cold Phoenix Ji Xue nodded and gestured to Nye Tian. The latter sat down cross-legged and immediately got ready. Then, Cold Phoenix Ji Xue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Then, a wave of power surged out from her palm and slowly drew out the supreme twin seals, enveloping Nye Tian. In the blink of an eye, the power of the supreme dual seals turned into a series of runic powers that wrapped around Nye Tian. Nye Tian immediately felt a soft force appear and circulate throughout his body, giving him an indescribable sense of comfort. This was a feeling he had never expected. He originally thought that after fusing with such a powerful force, it would be another heart-wrenching pain. Cold Phoenix Ji Xue looked at Nye Tian and nodded slightly. A faint smile flashed in her eyes. Ghost Father Ling Yi looked at Nie Tian with a gloomy expression. He thought to himself, Nie Tian, who exactly are you? Why would the protectors be willing to let you fuse with the power of undying and indestructible? That's right. The Supreme Twin Seals represented the power of undying and indestructible. Once Nie Tian fused with the Supreme Twin Seals, his bloodline would undergo a transformation, and he would possess the power of undying and indestructible. The power of undying and indestructible was a power that could go against time. It represented eternal immortality. Indeed, Nie Tian had an extremely high degree of compatibility with the Supreme Twin Seals. However, this was because of the tear of the princess in his body. The tear of the princess originally belonged to Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. Yet, she was willing to give it to Nie Tian. From this, it could be seen how important Nie Tian was to her. Ghost Father Ling Yi did not wish for an outsider to fuse with the Supreme Twin Seals. This was the situation he was most unwilling to see. But now that things had come to this, he could only choose Nie Tian. After a while, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui looked at Nie Tian. Her gentle lips twitched as she said faintly, "The fusion has begun." At this moment, the power of the Supreme Twin Seals had already started to slowly fuse with Nie Tian's body. Next, he just had to wait for the power of the Supreme Twin Seals to completely fuse with Nie Tian's body. Then, it would be a great success. Nie Tian's eyes were tightly shut. His expression was calm and tranquil. The fusion process of the Supreme Twin Seals was unexpectedly peaceful. There was no pain at all. The power of the Supreme Twin Seals was like a slow stream that slowly fused with his body. It nourished his blood, flesh, and meridians. It made him feel that his power was slowly increasing. At this moment, Ghost Father Ling Yi looked at Cold Phoenix Ji Shui and asked solemnly, "Protectors, are you really sure that he is the person who can save the Three-Life Clan?" "I'm not sure." Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's eyes narrowed slightly. She said, "But I know that he is my only choice." Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes dimmed slightly. He was speechless. He did not know what had happened between Nie Tian and Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. How could Cold Phoenix Ji Shui have such a firm heart for Nie Tian? Pfft. At this moment, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's body suddenly trembled. Then, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. At the same time, her face became much paler. "Protectors, are you all right?" Ghost Father Ling Ye's expression changed when he saw this. He asked in surprise, "I'm fine. I'm just too tired." Cold Phoenix Ji Shui wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. But before she finished speaking, her expression suddenly changed. Then, she turned around abruptly. A violent power of flames appeared and pressed down. Bang! Her eyes darkened. She wanted to resist, but it was already too late. After a muffled sound, she was directly sent flying. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's figure retreated thousands of meters. Only then did she manage to stabilize herself. However, she vomited another mouthful of blood. Her beautiful face was as pale as paper. There was not a trace of blood in it. "Lian Jiufeng." She steadied herself. Her eyes trembled slightly. Cold, she stared at Lian Jiufeng not far away. The person who attacked her just now was Lian Jiufeng. She did not think that Lian Jiufeng would suddenly attack. Moreover, she was injured. That was why she was hit. Using 7 Nights of Samsara to suppress the Supreme Twin Seals, and fusing the Supreme Twin Seals for Nie Tian had exhausted too much of her strength. Now that she was hit by Lian Jiufeng's palm, she immediately found it hard to endure. "Lian Jiufeng, have you gone mad?" Ghost Father Ling Yi was stunned by the sudden turn of events. Then, he growled, "I've gone mad?" Lian Jiufeng's eyes darkened. His entire person was like a beast. He roared cold, "The ones who have gone mad are you. You would rather let an outsider fuse the Supreme Twin Seals than let me do it. Why is that?" His eyes were cold and sinister. They were filled with killing intent. Chapter 3889. Boom! Lian Jiufeng let out a roar, and his flames erupted like a tsunami. They battered the space around him violently. This madman! Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes darkened as he growled. He never thought that Lai Yin Jiufeng would attack at this moment. He was just a soul. He posed no threat to Lai Yin Jiufeng. Right now, Leng Huang Jixue was extremely injured. It seemed like she could not stop Lai Yin Jiufeng. If Lai Yin Jiufeng forcefully intervened and interrupted Nie Tian's merging of the two seals, it would be terrible. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, move aside. Lai Yin Jiufeng growled coldly. His eyes shone with sharpness and murderous intent. Wishful thinking. Ling Huang Jixue stepped forward. Sword intent surged around her. Her eyes were cold and determined. Nie Tian was behind her. There was no way she could retreat. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being merciless. Lai Yin Jiufeng roared. He immediately swung his palm. Violent fire energy surged out. It was like an endless sea of fire that pressed down on Ling Huang Jixue. The surrounding space was filled with the power of fire. It was as if the world itself was burning. It made people feel like they had fallen into a furnace. Ling Huang Jixue's eyes trembled slightly. She slashed the air with her sword. Immediately, a sword shadow shot out like an arrow. It was extremely sharp and murderous. The sword shadow was like a sharp blade. It stabbed into the sea of fire and forcefully cut it open. Lai Yin Jiufeng instantly felt a bone-piercing chill. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Then, he retreated and barely avoided the fatal attack. He stabilized himself. His eyes were filled with darkness and shock. He never thought that Ling Huang Jixue could still erupt with such terrifying power despite being heavily injured. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would have lost his life in that split second just now. Ling Huang Jixue stood still. Her eyes were cold and murderous. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. She was extremely injured. Forcefully drawing on sword intent was extremely pressuring to her martial body. Freezing Phoenix Jixue, are you really going to do this for an outsider? Lai Yin Jiufeng asked coldly and angrily. He didn't understand why Cold Phoenix Ji Shui would protect Nie Tian so much. If the current Ling Huang Jixue was still the Shui from before, he could still accept it. However, Ling Huang Jixue had already awakened her memories and knew her true identity. So why would she still want to protect Nie Tian? Don't force me. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui replied coldly. Sword intent that was as red as blood surged around her, but her entire person was as cold as an iceberg, causing others to feel fear at the sight of her. You forced me. Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes suddenly narrowed. With a growl, the power of golden flames erupted from his body. Terrifying tongues of fire immediately appeared in the air, lashing out violently as if they wanted to devour and kill everything in their path. Die! Then, Lai Yin Jiufeng let out a furious roar. His face was hideous and terrifying. He charged at Ling Huang Jixue like a ferocious beast. Boom! 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 Immediately, 3 terrifying firestorms appeared in the air. They swept towards Ling Huang Jixue with great momentum. Watch out! Ghost Father Ling Yi could not help but cry out in shock. Ling Huang Jixue stood where she was like an iceberg. However, the power of sword intent around her became even more violent. It was released madly, causing her to seem extremely sharp. It was as if she was about to tear the world apart. Boom! In the next moment, Ling Huang Jixue attacked directly. A shadow of a sword appeared in the air and fell. The aura of sword intent immediately filled the entire hall, suppressing the aura of the golden flames. Bang! 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 The shadow of the sword immediately fell and destroyed the 3 firestorms. Immediately, boundless power surged out and spread in all directions. The entire hall was battered by the terrifying power. Qi Chenfeng and the others who had been curled up in a corner of the hall desperately used their own power to resist the impact of the power, hoping to save their own lives. However, Nie Tian did not move at all under the raging waves. The power of the double seals formed a natural barrier around his body, preventing him from being hurt. Bang! At this moment, a dull sound rang out. Then, two figures retreated and stabilized themselves at the same time. Leng Huang Jishue, do you really want to fight to the death? Lai Yin Jiufeng stabilized himself. His eyes shone with murderous light as he roared like a wild beast. Leng Huang Jishue's face was dark. She did not reply. However, her eyes were extremely determined. She would not give in even half a step. Damn it! Lai Yin Jiufeng was completely enraged. He roared like thunder. Then, a pair of flame wings appeared behind him. The power of the golden flames erupted from his body like a raging wave. The terrifying impact of the flames shook the entire hall as if it was about to collapse at any time. Leng Huang Jishue's expression was calm. However, at a certain moment, she glanced at Nie Tian. Only after making sure that he was fine did she relax. No matter what, she had to ensure that Nie Tian successfully fused the supreme double seals. Leng Huang Jishue, you forced me to do this. At this moment, Lai Yin Jiufeng roared madly. Then, he moved instantly. The flames around him turned into a merciless storm that surged towards Leng Huang Jishue. Leng Huang Jishue's sword intent surged all over her body. However, she could not block the incomparably scorching power of the flames. At this moment, her expression was extremely ugly. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Only her eyes still maintained their sharpness and coldness. One sword, fallen spirit. At the moment when the firestorm was about to descend, her eyes trembled slightly, and she immediately made her move. The blood-red sword will was like the sunset that filled the sky. It suddenly descended and condensed into a gigantic sword shadow in the void. Like a raging dragon, it dashed towards the firestorm. Boom! Bang! 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 In the next moment, the two extremely powerful forces collided with each other, and the sky rumbled while the entire hall started to shake. It was like a small boat being tossed about in a storm. Leng Huang Jishue and Lai Yin Jiufeng's figures were instantly engulfed by the violent power. Boom, 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 chi, chi, chi. In the void, terrifying powers clashed, collided, devoured, and fused together. The endless power of strangulation was incomparably violent, as if it could destroy everything. Protector. Ghost Father Ling Yi was shocked by the scene in front of him. His face was incomparably shocked as he shouted in a daze. After a long time, the violent power in the void dissipated, and two blood-colored figures appeared. Lai Yin Jiufeng's body was drenched in blood. His body was covered in terrifying wounds, as if he had been cut by a sharp blade. Chapter 3890. Leng Huang Jishue's body was a bloody mess. She trembled slightly as if she could barely stand. Obviously, her injuries were extremely heavy, and the aura within her body was extremely weak. She was like a withered leaf that was about to wither and wither. However, her eyes were still as sharp as ever. She stared at Lai Yin Jiufeng like a pair of sharp blades. She did not show any signs of fear or retreat. Even if she was on her last breath, she would never take a step back. Because Nie Tian was behind her. Leng Huang Jishue. At this time, Lai Yin Jiufeng's body shook. The blood on his body was washed away. His eyes were extremely dark as he said coldly, "Get out of my way." He did not want to kill Leng Huang Jishue. He only wanted the supreme twin seals. "Unless you kill me," Leng Huang Jishue's lips twitched. Her voice trembled, but she was extremely determined. "You're courting death." Lai Yin Jiufeng could feel the determination in Leng Huang Jishue's eyes. His pupils contracted. He growled and showed his ferocity. He did not want to kill Leng Huang Jishue, but that did not mean he did not dare to. If Leng Huang Jishue insisted on blocking his way, he could only harden his heart. "I'll say it one last time, get out of my way." Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes darkened. He spoke again, enunciating every word with killing intent. "Come," Leng Huang Jishue said solemnly. Her trembling body did not retreat. Instead, she took a step forward. Ah! Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes trembled. He roared like a wild beast, "You forced me to do this! Die!" He slammed his palm the moment he finished speaking. Boundless power of fire appeared and condensed into a giant palm in the air, pressing down on Ling Huang Jishu. No. Ghost Father Ling Yi was shocked by the scene before him and shouted. Ling Huang Jishue was the protector of the three-life race, and the hope of the three-life race. If Lai Yin Jiufeng killed Ling Huang Jishue, it was the same as cutting off the hope of the three-life race. Nie Tian, I've tried my best. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui sensed the aura of death approaching, but her gaze was incomparably calm. She turned around to look at the figure behind her, her lips slightly trembling as she used all her strength to speak. Boom! In the next instant, a deadly palm strike descended, mercilessly pressing down on Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. At the moment of life and death, a strange force suddenly surged out and enveloped the Cold Phoenix Ji Shui. However, he was still a step too late. Bang! Before the strange power could descend, the shadow of the palm descended and directly landed on Ling Huang Ji Shui's body. The latter's figure trembled and was directly sent flying. Almost at the same time, the strange force fell and blocked the remaining force of the palm's shadow. Bang! However, Ling Huang Jishue's body heavily smashed onto a huge stone pillar, sinking into it. Protector! This shocking scene caused Ghost Father Ling Ye's eyes to tremble, and he shouted loudly. Lai Yin Jiufeng frowned and exclaimed in surprise when the strange power suddenly appeared. He clearly did not expect that strange force to suddenly appear. In the next instant, he suddenly felt a murderous aura lock onto him, and it actually caused him to feel a bone-piercing chill. Nie Tian. He suddenly came to his senses and turned around to look. A figure stood coldly in the air. It was none other than Nie Tian. Nie Tian had finished fusing the two seals. How is this possible? Lai Yin Jiufeng's eyes trembled as he cried out in shock. His face was completely frozen. He could not believe that Nie Tian could fuse the two supreme seals in such a short amount of time. It should be known that the two supreme seals were the most powerful items of the three-life race. Just how strong was Nie Tian's martial body to be able to fuse the two supreme seals in such a short amount of time? This! Ghost Father Ling Yi came to his senses, and his expression suddenly changed. He was completely dumbfounded. He also did not think that Nie Tian would be able to finish fusing the two seals at this moment. He was originally surprised that Nie Tian would need at least a few months to fuse the two seals. But Nie Tian had done it in less than an hour. This was simply too inconceivable, completely beyond his imagination. Cher. Nie Tianling's eyes trembled in the air as he looked at Ji Shui. Die. It was at this moment that Lai Yin Jiufeng came to his senses. He actually let out a low roar, and his aura instantly skyrocketed to the limit. Then, he flashed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian had just finished fusing the two seals, and his aura was still unstable. This was the best time for him to attack. Scram! Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he let out a bellow. His raging voice was like a clap of thunder that resounded through the entire hall, causing the entire hall to shake. It was as if this world could no longer contain his power. Boom! In the next instant, his figure shook as he took a step forward. Instantly, an extremely enormous strand of sword intent surged out violently like a tempestuous wave. Bang! Lai Yin Jiufeng was sent flying before he could even react. He left a bloody trail in the air and smashed into the wall behind him. No one knew if he was dead or alive. This! Ghost Father Ling Ye's face trembled as he saw this. He was so shocked that he could not speak a word. Nie Tian, who had just fused the two seals, was able to erupt with such a terrifying aura. It was just too terrifying. Qi Chenfeng and the others cowered in a corner and trembled. They did not dare to speak. But Nie Tian ignored Lai Yin Jiufeng completely. He arrived beside Ling Huang Jishue in a flash and held the bloody Ling Huang Jishue in his arms. However, Ling Huang Jishue's eyes were tightly closed at this moment. She was completely devoid of life. Share. Nie Tian's eyes trembled. He roared and poured all his power into Ling Huang Jishue's body. However, Ling Huang Jishue, who had suffered the impact of his power, still did not move at all. Share. Nie Tian roared furiously like a wild beast. He released all his power in an attempt to save the person in his arms. Unfortunately, Ling Huang Jishue was like a block of ice. She was bone-chilling and lifeless. Nie Tian, she's gone. Fat Cat's voice resounded like thunder in Nie Tian's ears. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Nie Tian's eyes were bloodshot as he roared, Ling Huang Jishue, I won't allow you to die. Wake up, wake up, wake up. His roar was like thunder, but it was so powerless right now. Nie Tian used all his power. Blood even seeped out of the corner of his mouth, but he still could not wake the person in his arms. The tears in his eyes finally fell. At this moment, no matter how determined his heart was, he could not stop his tears. Pain, pain that pierced into his bones, pain that tore at his heart and lungs. In this moment, he felt like his body and soul were being torn apart. He could never be whole again. Aura! Fat Cat's voice rang out once more in his moment of despair. Chapter 3891. Heavenly Sacred Heart. Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and then he felt a weak but stable aura in Ling Huang Jishue's body. His expression changed, and his eyes glowed with excitement. Ling Huang Jishue's body no longer had any signs of life, but there was a weak aura circulating in her body, like another heart of hers, beating weakly. This. Nie Tian sensed the weak but stable heartbeat of the heavenly sacred heart. He could not help but be stunned for a while, and could not speak for a long time. The aura of the heavenly sacred heart was still there. Did it mean that Ling Huang Jishue was still alive? Little fatty, Schwerer is still alive, right? Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he asked in a trembling voice. Fat Cat's face was tense. After hesitating for a long time, she said, the aura of the heavenly sacred heart is indeed still there, but this does not mean that Cher is still alive. I did not sense any signs of life in Cher's body. This is too strange. The existence of the aura of the heavenly sacred heart meant that there was no definite connection between it and Ling Huang Jishue, and it was impossible for a dead person to have any resonance with the heavenly sacred heart. The aura of the heavenly sacred heart was still there, but there was no sign of life in Ling Huang Jishue's body. This was very strange. At this moment, Fat Cat seemed to have sensed something, and her expression suddenly changed. Almost at the same time, Ling Huang Jishue's body underwent an incredible change. The blood on her body slowly fell off, and then the horrifying wounds slowly healed. An extremely mysterious aura shrouded her, making her seem to have fallen into a mysterious state. Nie Tian was stunned by the scene in front of him. He was completely stunned. His eyes stared straight at Ling Huang Jishue, and his mouth was wide open, but he could not make a sound. He could not imagine that Ling Huang Jishue's body, which had completely lost its vitality, would automatically recover. Not far away, Ghost Father Ling Yu was also shocked by the scene in front of him. His illusory face was full of disbelief. Nie Tian sensed the aura around Ling Huang Jishue, and felt even more shocked in his heart. He could sense that not only was Ling Huang Jishue's aura changing, even the surrounding spacetime was undergoing some sort of miraculous change. It was as if Ling Huang Jishue had been separated from the spacetime in front of him by some sort of power, and was now in another spacetime. Nie Tian, take a closer look at the spacetime aura around Cher. At this moment, the Fat Cat's voice rang out, and there was great joy in her surprise. Spacetime aura. Nie Tian's eyes trembled and his expression changed. He had already sensed that the spacetime around Ling Huang Jishue had changed, but when he carefully sensed it, his face was completely frozen, and his whole person was completely petrified. He had never thought that such a strange change would happen to cold Phoenix Ji Shue's body. After a long time, Nie Tian finally came to his senses. His eyes trembled as he said in a daze, "Time has stopped." He finally sensed the crux of the matter. The space-time around cold Phoenix Ji Shue's body had actually stopped. This stillness was not the stillness of space, but the stillness of the flow of time. In other words, cold Phoenix Ji Shue's life had been frozen by a mysterious power. Nie Tian, take a closer look. There is a layer of energy shield around Cher's body. Then, the fat cat's voice rang out again, and it said in a deep voice. When Nie Tian heard the fat cat's words, he finally reacted. He took a deep breath, and his divine sense directly connected with the eternal night demon fox, and carefully observed cold Phoenix Ji Shue. Sure enough, he saw that there was a layer of energy shield around cold Phoenix Ji Shue's body that was extremely difficult to detect. It seemed to be only a thin layer, but it contained some kind of mysterious power. It is this layer of shield that made the space-time around Cher stop. After a while, Nie Tian became much colder, and he said in a deep voice, "Yes." The fat cat nodded and said, "If I'm not wrong, this layer of shield should be the legendary Sacred Heart protection. The fact that Cher was able to recover from her injuries should be because of this shield. Moreover, this layer of shield made the time around cold Phoenix Ji Shue stop. The last trace of her life aura was preserved." Sacred Heart protection. Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and he said with blazing passion, "Cher is not dead yet, is she?" "Yes." The fat cat nodded, but there was not the slightest bit of relaxation on its face. Instead, it became more serious, and it could not hide its worry. It said, "Cher is indeed still alive. The last trace of her life aura is integrated into the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law, and is being protected by the Sacred Heart. However, the power of the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law cannot reverse life and death. At most, it can only delay the time of Cher's death. And I speculate that the state of the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law cannot be maintained for a long time." This. Nie Tian was stunned, and the slightly happy expression on his face once again became unsightly. After a moment of silence, he asked, "How long can the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law be maintained?" The fat cat frowned, paused for a few seconds and said, "At most a year, at least half a year." "Half a year?" Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and his expression suddenly changed, and suddenly became even more unsightly. He originally thought that with the protection power of the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law, it could protect cold Phoenix Ji Shue's life. He did not expect that it could only temporarily delay her death. After half a year, the Sacred Heart of Heavenly Law would not be able to maintain the state of Sacred Heart protection, and cold Phoenix Ji Shue would also die. "Fat, you must have a way to save Cher, right?" Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and he asked nervously. "Sigh." As if it had already expected that Nie Tian would ask this, the fat cat let out a long sigh and said, "I have long thought about it, but there is nothing that can bring such a weak person back to life." "What about the forbidden astral soul?" Nie Tian's eyes darkened, and he asked in a deep voice. "The forbidden astral soul does have the power to reverse life and death, but such power will only be effective after the cultivator has fused with the astral soul." The fat cat said bitterly, "With Cher's current state, it is impossible for her to withstand the forbidden astral soul. If she forcibly fuses with it, I'm afraid she will not be able to fuse with it. The astral soul will directly die." This. Nie Tian was stunned, and his expression stiffened. He himself also knew that the forbidden astral soul could only save the living, and not the dead. Desolate Ghost Boundless, Tang 13, Xian Xie, Jun Jianxing, and the others all fused with the astral soul in a dying state, but at that time, they were still alive and could successfully withstand the power of the fusion. But at this moment, cold Phoenix Ji Shue simply could not withstand the power of the astral soul. No matter what, I must save Cher. Nye Tian's eyes trembled, and he said heavily. Chapter 3892. What is it? The Ghost Emperor's voice suddenly sounded. Although it was calm, it exploded in Nye Tian's ears like a clap of thunder, causing him to perk up and ask in surprise. Angel's blood wings. The Ghost Emperor was silent for a moment, then uttered these words one by one. Angel's blood wings. As soon as he finished speaking, Nye Tian and Fat Cat exclaimed at the same time. One looked puzzled, the other shocked. Nye Tian didn't know what Angel's blood wings were, so he was puzzled. Fat Cat didn't expect the Ghost Emperor to say Angel's blood wings. Angel's blood wings? What is that? Nye Tian became cold and asked in a low voice. Before the Ghost Emperor could speak, Fat Cat said in a low voice, a sacred relic of the Angel tribe. It represents the most supreme thing of the Angel tribe. Angel tribe. Nye Tian couldn't help but tremble when he heard this name, and his expression changed slightly. He was no stranger to the Angel tribe, and he was quite fated with several members of the Angel tribe. His cousin Nye Qingwan's mother was a member of the Angel tribe, so she was considered half an Angel tribe member. The person beside Nye Qingwan, EMO, was a descendant of the Baleful Wings tribe. Although he was expelled from the Holy World, he was a genuine member of the Angel tribe. He had also met the saintess of the Angel tribe, Lan Xuani, who had even given him the Angel Sacred Token. He had also met the saintess of the Angel tribe, Sacred Feather Phoenix Supreme. Her strength was not below that of the natural Cursed Lone Star and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. Speaking of which, Nye Tian also had a rather deep relationship with the Angel tribe. At this moment, he was shocked when Fat Cat said that Angel's blood wings were a sacred relic of the Angel tribe. Little fatty, how can I get the blood angel wings? Nye Tian's eyes trembled as he asked. The Fat Cat's expression sank. Legend has it that the angel blood wings were left behind by the angel ruler before the primordial era. They are the wings of the angel ruler and contain the purest bloodline power of the angel clan. They are the supreme treasure of the angel clan. The bloodline power of the angel race is the bloodline power with the greatest vitality. The bloodline power of the angel blood wings can indeed help Cher recover. But, at this point, Fat Cat's face sank and she paused. But what? Nye Tian asked anxiously. But the angel's blood wings are guarded by the 9 powerful elders of the angel clan. Not to mention ordinary angel clan martial artists, even the angel clan's patriarch would need the permission of the 9 elders to see the angel's blood wings. Fat Cat sighed and said, as for outsiders, it is even more impossible to rely on them. Blood wings of the close angel. This. Nye Tian was stunned. He didn't expect the angel blood wings to be so precious. It is said that no outsider has ever seen the angel blood wings, let alone used the angel blood wings. Fat Cat said helplessly, it is impossible for you to use the angel blood wings to save Cher. I have the angel sacred token. Nye Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He took out the angel sacred token that Lan Xuani had given him, a look of surprise on his face. The angel sacred token is useless. Fat Cat shook her head and said, the angel sacred token does have an extraordinary significance to the angel race, but it is impossible to use the angel blood wings with just a sacred token. Nye Tian's face sank and he suddenly froze in place, unable to speak. He now knew that the angel blood wings could save Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, but he could not obtain the angel blood wings, which made him feel even more pain in his heart. Nye Tian, let's think of another way. Fat Cat sighed helplessly. I want to meet the people of the angel race. Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice. Fat Cat frowned and her face immediately turned ugly. She knew Nye Tian's temperament very well. He would not turn back even if he crashed into a brick wall. If he firmly believed that the angel blood wings could save Cold Phoenix Ji Shui, he would do everything he could to obtain it. But this time, it was no small matter. The angel bloodwings were the supreme item of the angel race. If Nye Tian dared to have any ideas about the angel bloodwings, it was tantamount to provoking the entire angel race. In the all-heaven sacred world, the angel race was an extremely powerful race. Even the heavenly law sacred pavilion would not easily offend them. Even though Nye Tian had many identities and had the support of many powerful forces, it was still a little difficult for him to obtain the angel blood wings. Nye Tian, do you know how powerful the angel race is? Fat Cat calmed down a little and asked. No matter what, I have to give it a try. Nye Tian's eyes were resolute as he replied in a deep voice. He had already made a decision in his heart. He had to give it his all and fight to the end. Fat Cat shook her head helplessly and did not say anything else. Since Nye Tian had already made a decision, he would not easily change his mind. Next, he could only take it one step at a time. Nye Tian, let's leave this place first. Fat Cat said in a deep voice and then went silent. Nye Tian nodded slightly and directly placed Cold Phoenix Ji Shui into the 9 extremes. Nye Tian, how is the protector? Ghost Father Ling Yi finally reacted at this moment. He took a step forward and asked Nye Tian. Not very optimistic. Nye Tian shook his head and did not hide anything. He told Ling Yi about Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's situation and finally said, Lord Clan Leader, don't worry. I will do my best to ensure Cold Phoenix Ji Shui's survival. Ghost Father Ling Yi listened with a dull face and could not react for a long time. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui was the last hope of the Three Lives clan. If she died, would there still be a future for the entire Three Lives clan? Lord Clan Leader, I have to leave this place now. Nye Tian did not say anything else and directly bid farewell. Leave. Ghost Father Ling Yi was stunned for a moment and said, You have just fused the double seals. Your martial body is not stable yet. If you leave now, I'm afraid your martial body will not be able to bear it. Nye Tian had just fused the supreme double seals. The power of the double seals had not adapted to his martial body yet. If he left the Three Lives ancestral land immediately, his martial body might not be able to bear it. I have to bear it. Nye Tian's gaze trembled slightly and he said heavily. Rui Qianyu and Cold Phoenix Ji Shui did not have much time. For him, time was everything. He could not afford to delay it. All right. The Ghost Father, Ling Yi, could tell what Nye Tian was thinking. He nodded solemnly. He was just a spirit. He relied on the special boundary power of the Three Lives ancestral land to survive until now and could not leave. He could only stay here and wait for Nye Tian to return. Perhaps Nye Tian would return. Lai Yin Jiufeng. At this moment, Nye Tian remembered Lai Yin Jiufeng. His eyes suddenly turned cold and he turned to look. But there was no sign of Lai Yin Jiufeng at the collapsed wall. Chapter 3893. Nye Tian was not surprised that Lai Yin Jiufeng had escaped. He had been completely focused on Ling Huang Jishue, so he hadn't paid any attention to Lai Yin Jiufeng at all. If Lai Yin Jiufeng was still here, Nye Tian would have killed him without hesitation. Let's go. Nye Tian bade farewell to Ghost Father Ling Yi without hesitation. Ghost Father Ling Yi did not make him stay. He told Nye Tian about the exit of the Three Lives ancestral grounds. Nye Tian left with Qi Chenfeng and the others. Lord Nye Tian, Lai Yin Jiufeng will definitely go to the Blazing Wing race after he leaves this place. If you want revenge, I can make him stay, Qi Chenfeng said carefully to Nye Tian along the way. Qi Chenfeng had seen Nye Tian's performance in the Three Lives ancestral grounds. He had never imagined that a heavenly mandate realm martial practitioner could be so terrifying. Only now did he realize that the silver-haired martial practitioner in front of him was someone he could not afford to offend. That was why he had tried his best to curry favor with Nye Tian. He wanted to get closer to Nye Tian. That is between the Blazing Wing race and Lai Yin Jiufeng. It has nothing to do with me. Nye Tian glanced at Qi Chenfeng and said coldly. Nye Tian knew what Qi Chenfeng was thinking, But the most important thing right now was Rui Qianyu and Ling Huang Jishue. He wanted to take revenge on Lai Yin Jiufeng, but now was not the time. Moreover, the relationship between the Blazing Wing race and Lai Yin Jiufeng was unclear. Qi Qinfeng clearly did not realize how powerful Lai Yin Jiufeng was. A mere Blazing Wing race could not trap Lai Yin Jiufeng at all. Nie Tian did not think that a single Blazing Wing race could kill Lai Yin Jiufeng. At that moment, Nie Tian seemed to have thought of something. Eyebrows furrowed, he turned to Qi Qinfeng and asked, Qi Qinfeng, the Blazewings are part of the angels, right? Yes. Qinfeng didn't know why Nie Tian would suddenly ask such a question, but he still nodded and said, Our race has another name, the Fire Angel. Fire Angel? Nie Tian frowned. The corners of his mouth twitched as he asked directly, What's the status of your Blazing Feather race in the angel race? The Fire Angel is one of the 9 branches of the angels, known as the Fire Lineage. Qi Qinfeng's eyes flickered with excitement, but his expression soon became gloomy as he said, However, our branch is only an insignificant existence in the entire Blazing Feather race. How can I meet the strongest existence of your Fire Lineage? Nie Tian's eyes darkened as he asked directly. You want to see the Reverend of the Fire Lineage? Qi Qinfeng asked with a strange expression. Yes. Nie Tian nodded with a firm look in his eyes. Qi Qinfeng's expression darkened as he said, Sir Nie Tian, not everyone can meet the Reverend of the Fire Lineage. Even the leader of our branch has a hard time meeting the Reverend. Can I meet him? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he took out the angel's sacred badge. This is... Qi Qinfeng's eyes trembled as he saw the angel's sacred badge in Nie Tian's hand. His face stiffened and he didn't react for a long time. He didn't expect Nie Tian to have the angel's sacred badge. Every member of the angel race knows about the angel's sacred badge. Although most people have never seen the angel's sacred badge before, every member of the angel race can recognize the unique aura of the badge. Qi Qinfeng was certain that the badge in Nie Tian's hand was the legendary angel's sacred badge. Yes, of course. Only after a long while did Qi Qinfeng snap back to his senses. He nodded repeatedly and said, Lord Nie Tian, do you need me to show you the way to Overlord Blazing Feather? I don't want anyone to know that I have the angel's sacred badge, understand? Nie Tian acted as if he didn't hear Qi Qinfeng's words. He spoke with a gloomy and cold expression. I understand. I won't tell anyone. Qi Qinfeng nodded as he promised. He was afraid that Nie Tian would kill him. From now on, you will follow me. I have a few things to ask you about the angel race. Nie Tian nodded and said, Yes. Qi Qinfeng nodded again. He didn't dare to disobey. After a while, Nie Tian, Qi Qinfeng, and the others came out from the ancestral land of 3 lives. Boom! As soon as Nie Tian left the ancestral land of 3 lives, he felt a violent force rushing into his body. His expression changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Are you all right, Mr. Nie? Upon seeing this, Jun Jianqing hastily stepped forward and held Nie Tian up. I'm fine. Nie Tian wiped the blood from his mouth and nodded while enduring the pain. Ghost Father Ling Yi said that Nie Tian had just fused the Supreme Twin Seals. The power of the seals was not yet stable. Once he left the ancestral land of 3 lives, his martial body might not be able to withstand the impact. However, Nie Tian was pressed for time and had to leave. As soon as he left the ancestral land of 3 lives, he felt the impact of the seals. His body was in excruciating pain, as if every piece of his flesh was about to be torn apart. However, he endured the pain with a gloomy expression. Nie Tian Jianqing, you're out. At this time, Yan Wuqi, who had been waiting outside the ancestral land of 3 lives, saw Nie Tian and the others appear and came to their side. At this time, Saint Rock Academy and the Blazing Feather race had already left with Lai Yin Jiufeng. Only Yan Wuqi was left. Let's leave first, Nie Tian said while enduring the pain. Okay, Yen Wuqi agreed and left with Nie Tian and the others. Qi Chenfeng followed Nie Tian, while the other Blazing Wings returned to the Holy Rock Institute. Nie Tian, Yen Wuqi, and the others did not return to Saint Rock Academy. Instead, they returned to the Mu family in Nine Changes City. Nie Tian did not want to waste time, but the impact of the double seals was too strong. He had to rest for a few days or his martial body would not be able to withstand it. Helpless, Nie Tian rested for 3 days in the Mu residence. After his martial body adapted to the double seals, his aura became much stronger. 3 days later, Nie Tian and the others took their seats in the Mu residence's main hall. Nie Tian, where are you going next? Mu Jiuchuan knew that Nie Tian was going to leave, so he asked out of concern. I'm going to the high-rank sacred world. I need some talented young martial practitioners. Nie Tian frowned and said in a deep voice. Right now, Leng Huang Jixue and Rui Qianyu were both in danger. However, compared to Leng Huang Jixue, Rui Qianyu's situation was even more urgent. Nie Tian only had about 20 days left. Within this period of time, he had to find 6 young geniuses whose talent was comparable to Raindrop Qianyu's. Chapter 3894. Nie Tian was surprised to hear Yen Wuqi mention the 5 great academies. He had never heard of the 5 great academies, so he knew nothing about them. You don't know about the 5 great academies? Yen Wuqi was surprised to see Nie Tian's reaction. I don't. Nie Tian frowned and shook his head. All right. Yen Wuqi shook his head helplessly and said, the 5 great academies refer to the 5 strongest martial academies in the all-sacred realm. They are the Dragon Martial Academy, Bloodwing Academy, 10 Directions Academy, 10,000 Martial Academy, and the Heavenly Law Martial Palace. The 5 great academies represent the strongest holy land of martialism in the all-sacred realm. For millions of years, they have nurtured countless powerful martial artists. In the all-sacred realm, more than half of the heavenly martial sacred ancestor experts come from the 5 great academies. Therefore, any one of the 5 great academies is no weaker than a first-rate power in the all-sacred realm. However, the 5 great academies do not compete with the outside world. They do not have many conflicts with the outside world. In fact, they even exist to balance the various powers. The reason why the various organizations of the Saints' world have been able to coexist in peace for so many years is all thanks to the 5 academies, said Jian Chun. Yen Wuqi smiled and looked at Nie Tian. I just wanted to ask you if you are interested in joining the 5 great academies. I'm not interested, Nie Tian answered coldly, his face calm. Not interested? Yen Wuqi was startled. He thought he had misheard. He did not expect Nie Tian to be uninterested in joining the 5 great academies. In the all-sacred realm, the 5 great academies were the sacred grounds of martial arts for countless cultivators. Countless people dreamed of joining the 5 great academies. However, the 5 great academies had very high recruitment requirements. Every year, only cultivators from high-rank sacred worlds and top-rank sacred worlds were qualified to join. A cultivator born in a different sacred world represented a completely different starting point. How could it be easy to defeat others when their starting points were different? However, Nie Tian was uninterested in joining the 5 great academies. That seemed a little too arrogant. Nie Tian's response was not because he was too arrogant, but because he did not like this kind of academy life. To him, the real world of martial arts was the best academy. He had entered some martial arts academies before, but he rarely learned from the teachers in the academies. He would not even participate in some of the missions in the academies. To him, those missions were too easy, and they didn't serve the slightest purpose of training. Nie Tian, didn't you just say that you need some talented young martial artists? Yen Wuqi took a moment to calm himself down. His eyes flickered as he said, there will be many talented martial artists participating in the recruitment of the 5 academies this time. You can find the people you need more easily there. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he listened to Yen Wuqi's words. Yen Wuqi was right. When the 5 academies recruited students, there would be many talented martial artists participating. He urgently needed to awaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman for Rui Qianyu, and the awakening formation required a martial artist with great talent. Perhaps he could take advantage of the recruitment period of the 5 academies to find a martial artist with great talent. When will the 5 academies recruit students? Where is it? Nie Tian abruptly raised his head and asked Yen Wuqi with a burning gaze. In 5 days, at the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. Yen Wuqi nodded and smiled when he saw Nie Tian's interest. The Southern Brilliance Sacred World is one of the top 3 sacred worlds in the All Heavens Sacred World. All right, I'll participate. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he nodded. At this moment, Yen Wuqi gave a strange smile and said, Nie Tian, not everyone can participate in the recruitment of the 5 major institutes. The 5 academies recruit students once every 1,000 years, and there is a limit to the number of people who can participate in the recruitment. That's why you need an admission token to participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. Don't you have an admission token? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he asked. He didn't have time to keep Yen Wuqi in suspense. To him, time was everything. I do have an admission token, but why should I give it to you? Yen Wuqi smiled faintly and said, there are only 10 admission tokens for the 5 academies in the entire virtual Luo realm, and we, the Ghost Clan, only have 5 of them. I won't give such a precious item to anyone. 6th Uncle Yu. Jun Jianxing frowned and was about to say something, but Yen Wuqi glared at him and he swallowed his words. Senior, if you have something to say, just say it. Nie Tian frowned and said in a deep voice. How could he not tell that Yen Wuqi wanted to state a condition? Good. Straightforward enough. Yen Wuqi smiled and said, you can have the admission token, but you have to promise me 3 things. First, you will participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies in the name of the Ghost Yama tribe. If you are accepted by the 5 academies, the glory will belong to us Ghost Clan. Sure. Sure, Nie Tian answered without hesitation. Second, you have to remember that you owe the Ghost Clan a favor. Yen Wuqi smiled faintly and continued. Yes. Nie Tian nodded. Third, I want something from you. Yen Wuqi's eyes flickered and he said in a deep voice. Nie Tian frowned and his expression changed. He asked in a deep voice, what is it? One of your eyes. Yen Wuqi's eyes flashed with a strange light as he stared straight into Nie Tian's eyes. Upon hearing Yen Wuqi's words, Nie Tian's face immediately darkened, becoming incomparably cold. He didn't expect Yen Wuqi to have such a big appetite. He wanted one of his eyes. What? You don't want it? Yen Wuqi's lips curled up into a cold smile as he asked. With a cold laugh, Nie Tian said in a grim voice, an entrance medallion is nothing to me. You can keep it for yourself. I don't want it anymore. That's right. At this moment, Yen Wuqi sneered and rose to his feet. His eyes were frosty and filled with killing intent as he said, Nie Tian, what if I insist on taking your eyes? You can try. Nie Tian frowned and stood up as well. His eyes were cold and he was not afraid of Yen Wuqi at all. It was true that Yen Wuqi was Jun Jianxing's 6th uncle and he had helped Nie Tian before. However, his request had crossed Nie Tian's bottom line. Young man, you're brave. Yen Wuqi sneered, the killing intent in his eyes became even more apparent, but courage cannot make up for the difference in strength. Chapter 3895. Boom! As soon as Yen Wuqi finished speaking, his aura burst out and soared into the sky. The surrounding void trembled, and the Mu residence's main hall shook violently as if it was about to collapse. Jun Jianxing panicked when he saw Yen Wuqi's murderous aura. He did not expect Yen Wuqi to have such a strong murderous intent for Nie Tian all of a sudden. At this moment, Nie Tian felt an enormous pressure pressing down on him, as if a mountain was pressing down on his body, causing him to be unable to breathe. Yen Wuqi's strength was far beyond that of an ordinary cultivator. His martial cultivation had already broken through to the heavenly tribulation Saint King realm, and his sword Dao had reached the 9th heavenly tribulation sword realm. He was only one step away from the inverse sword realm. Even an advanced Saint Emperor Tianyi would not be able to withstand the pressure from such an expert. Nie Tian, on the other hand, was bearing the brunt of it. His eyes were cold without any fear. Instead, they were surging with a strong battle intent. Yen Wuqi could feel the strong battle intent in Nie Tian's eyes. He said in a cold tone, "I didn't expect you to have reached the 9th heaven of heavenly mandate realm." 9th heaven of heavenly mandate realm. Jun Jianxing, Mu Jiuchuan, and the others were stunned. They clearly did not expect Nie Tian to have reached the 9th heaven of heavenly mandate realm. Not long ago, Nie Tian was only at the 5th heaven of heavenly mandate realm. Now, he had reached the 9th heaven of heavenly mandate realm. It was terrifying. What was even more strange was that they hadn't sensed it at all when Nie Tian had come to the lobby. That's right. Nie Tian had indeed reached the 9th heaven of heavenly mandate realm. In the past few days, he had consolidated the supreme twin seals and absorbed some of their power. His strength had made several breakthroughs. Moreover, his aura was affected by the power of the supreme twin seals. He could hide his aura well, and ordinary martial artists would not be able to sense his cultivation. However, when he released his aura, it was easy to see his cultivation. In just a few days, his strength had increased by several levels. This was simply too terrifying. However, this was all thanks to the power of the double seal. The power of the supreme double seal not only enhanced Nie Tian's strength, but it also put a great deal of pressure on his martial body. This was the reason why his body was so weak after coming out of the ancestral land of 3 lives. You want to suppress me with your strength? Impossible. Nie Tian's eyes suddenly darkened as he growled in a cold, extremely arrogant manner. Bang! Following that, his body trembled as Yen Wuqi's oppressive aura was directly broken through. Yen Wuqi's body shuddered involuntarily as he stumbled back several steps, nearly losing his footing. How is this possible? Yen Wuqi's face sank. His eyes trembled uncontrollably, and his face was filled with shock. He had never imagined that Nie Tian would be so terrifying that he could directly break through his oppression. In the next moment, Yen Wuqi calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Nie Tian, I only want your eyes. Are you really going to resist to the death?" "I will not give you my eyes," Nie Tianling said coldly, then said in a low voice, "If you want to fight, I will accompany you to the end." To the end? Yen Wuqi's face darkened, and his eyes trembled involuntarily. If it were any other heavenly mandate realm warrior who said such words in front of him, he would definitely treat it as a joke. A mere heavenly mandate Saint Master was not qualified to accompany him, a heavenly tribulation Saint King, to the end. However, Nie Tian was different. He had seen Nie Tian's nature-defying strength with his own eyes. It had completely subverted his understanding of the martial way. At this moment, Nie Tian's eyes darkened, and he said in a cold voice, "Yen Wuqi, you and I will fight to the death. The outcome is still uncertain." Yen Wuqi went blank for a moment. He actually sensed a hint of threat in Nie Tian's eyes, which made him feel as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat, making him feel very uncomfortable. "Sixth uncle, what is going on?" Jun Jianxing could not help but take a step forward and roared. Yen Wuqi frowned and his aura gradually eased. He was much calmer now. After a long silence, he finally said, "Jianxing, there is a crack in the ghost vein of our Yama demon clan." Ghost vein. Jun Jianxing heard these 2 words, and his face suddenly changed. He was stunned on the spot. He did not expect the situation to be so serious. Ghost vein? Nie Tian could not help but be stunned. He asked, "What is that?" Yen Wuqi sighed and did not speak. Instead, he looked at Jun Jianxing. Jun Jianxing frowned and said, The ghost vein is unique to our ghost clan. For every ghost clan, it is a supreme existence. It represents the continuation of the ghost vein. The ghost vein of the Yama Demon clan is broken. To the Yama Demon clan, it is the beginning of their decline. Nye Tian frowned and asked curiously, "What does this have to do with my eye?" Yen Wuqi's eyes trembled slightly. He said, "Your eye contains an aura similar to the ghost vein of the Yama Demon clan. If the ghost vein absorbs the power of your eye, it may be able to repair the broken ghost vein." Perhaps? Nye Tian was stunned, and his face was extremely gloomy. Yen Wuqi wanted his eye to repair the ghost vein. He was not sure if the ghost vein could recover after absorbing the power of the demon eye. It was just a possibility. It was ridiculous to want Nye Tian's demon eye just for a possibility. Since it has come to this, forget it. Yen Wuqi let out a long sigh and said, "I don't want to make a strong enemy for the Yama Demon clan. I don't want your eye anymore." Nye Tian's face was gloomy, and he did not speak. "Sixth uncle, did you come out this time to find a way to repair the ghost vein?" At this time, Jun Jianxing took a step forward and asked. In fact, he had been wondering why Yen Wuqi had appeared to save him. Ghost clansmen usually did not leave the ghost domain. Moreover, Yen Wuqi's position in the ghost Yama Demon clan was very high. It was even more impossible for him to leave on his own. Yen Wuqi nodded helplessly. He had already given up on taking Nye Tian's eye. He suddenly felt that it was not a wise move. "Sixth uncle, do you have the ghost vein with you?" Jun Jianxing frowned and asked Yen Wuqi with a burning gaze. Yen Wuqi nodded again. Suddenly, he noticed that Jun Jianxing's gaze was a little strange. He frowned and asked, "Jianxing, what do you want?" "Sixth uncle, if you trust me, please give me the ghost vein. I will definitely find a way to repair it." Jun Jianxing's gaze was firm as he said in a low voice. Yen Wuqi's gaze hardened and his face became gloomy. He did not speak for a long time. Chapter 3896. Yen Wuqi's face was gloomy. He was obviously thinking. Jun Jianxing's eyes darkened. After a while, he couldn't help but say, "Sixth uncle, I know you've never treated me as a member of the Yama ghost tribe. But I have the blood of the ghost race in me. I don't want to see my ghost vein broken. I want you to believe me, because it's me. This is my chance to return to the Yama ghost tribe." Yen Wuqi frowned and asked, "You want to repair the ghost vein so you can return to the Yama ghost tribe?" "Yes." Jun Jianxing nodded solemnly, his face determined. He was expelled from the Yama ghost tribe when he was 6 years old. Although the Yama ghost tribe didn't treat him as a member, he didn't forget that he had the blood of the Yama ghost tribe. He hoped to repair the ghost vein and return to the Yama ghost tribe. "All right, I'll give you the ghost vein." Yen Wuqi thought for a long time and finally made a decision. He said, "This time, you will represent the Yama ghost tribe and participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies." "Yes." Jun Jianxing's eyes lit up with excitement. He nodded and said, "Thank you, sixth uncle. I won't let you down." "I hope so." Yen Wuqi smiled bitterly. He took out a black object and handed it to Jun Jianxing. "Jianxing, this is the ghost vein of the Yama ghost tribe. It's more important than your life. You must take good care of it." "Yes." Jun Jianxing took the ghost vein and nodded. Nye Tian looked at the ghost vein in confusion. He didn't sense any aura from it. It seemed that the aura of the ghost vein had been concealed by some kind of seal. "Here are 2 entrance tokens for the 5 academies. Give them to the 2 of you." Then, Yen Wuqi took out 2 tokens and handed them to Jun Jianxing and Nye Tian. He lowered his head to Nye Tian and said, "Nye Tian, I'm sorry about what happened just now." "It's fine." Nye Tian took the medallion, nodded and said, "Since I've accepted the medallion, your 2 conditions are still valid. As for repairing the ghost vein, I will also help Jun Jianxing." "Many thanks." Yen Wuqi nodded sincerely. At this moment, Qi Qinfeng, who was standing off to the side, asked anxiously, "Lord Nyetian, what about me?" Obviously, he also wanted to participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. "Senior, do you still have an entry token?" Nyetian glanced at Qi Chunfeng and asked Yen Wuqi. Next, he planned to bring Yen Wuqi along to learn more about the angel tribe. "Here." Yen Wuqi glanced at Qi Chunfeng. Of course, he understood Nyetian's intention. He took out a token and threw it to Qi Chunfeng. "Thank you, Senior." Qi Chunfeng took the token and nodded in gratitude. Following that, Jun Jianxing and Mu Jiuchuan spoke for a while before Nyetian and the rest left the Mu abode for the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. After Yen Wuqi sent Nyetian and the others into the Sacred World net, he immediately left. The Southern Brilliance Sacred World was one of the few top-tier sacred worlds in the All Heavens Sacred World. Nyetian and the others had the entry token of the 5 academies, so they were qualified to enter the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. However, Yen Wuqi was already a Heavenly Tribulation King Sage, so it was impossible for him to enter the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. "Nyetian, I hope you won't disappoint me," Yen Wuqi murmured in his heart as he looked at the place where Nyetian and the others disappeared. At the same time, Nyetian and the others arrived in a completely unfamiliar environment the moment they disappeared from the space-time formation. The 3 of them were hovering in midair. Below them was a lush, boundless mountain range. It was a spectacular sight. "Is this the top-tier sacred world?" Qi Chunfeng exclaimed as he looked around. Nyetian and Jun Jianxing were calm, but they were also delighted. The top-tier sacred world was the highest level of sacred world. The saint energy contained in its space was incomparable to other sacred worlds. Nyetian stood quietly in midair. He could feel the surging aura of the saint energy around him. It was like a worm trying to enter his body through his pores. This was why the top-tier sacred world was superior to other sacred worlds. With the same amount of cultivation time, cultivating in a top-tier sacred world was more than 10 times more effective than cultivating in a high-tier sacred world. It was even more terrifying when compared to a middle-tier sacred world or a low-tier sacred world. "Lord Nyetian, where are we going now?" After a while, Qi Chunfeng calmed down and asked Nyetian. It was all thanks to Nyetian that he was able to come to a top-tier sacred world. If it wasn't for Nyetian, he wouldn't have been qualified to participate in the recruitment of the 5 academies. Hence, after coming to the Southern Brilliance Sacred World, he had to follow Nyetian's lead. The recruitment of the 5 academies is taking place in Vast Cloud Sacred City. "Let's go there now," Nyetian said with a faint smile. "This." Qi Chunfeng's face stiffened. He said, "Lord Nyetian, we've just arrived at the Southern Brilliance Sacred World. We don't even know the directions. How are we going to get to Vast Cloud Sacred City?" Nyetian frowned and let out a bitter smile. He had never thought of this problem. Yen Wuqi only told him that the recruitment of the 5 academies was taking place in Vast Cloud Sacred City. He didn't tell him how to get there. "Let's find the nearest city first. We'll ask the others when we see them," Jun Jianxing said with a faint smile. "All right," Nyetian nodded. This was the only stupid way at the moment. "Lord Nyetian, look." At this moment, Qi Chunfeng suddenly screamed and pointed at a place far away. Nyetian's eyebrows furrowed as he looked in the direction Qi Chunfeng was pointing at. What he saw was a gigantic crimson flying beast that was thousands of meters long and had a wingspan of thousands of meters. It looked like a dazzling sunset. So fast. Jun Jianxing also looked over and exclaimed. The red bird was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived above them. Of course, this is the unique flying mount of our Blazing Feather clan, Blazing Feather Fire. Qi Chunfeng chuckled and shouted towards the sky, "Friend, I'm from the Blazing Feather clan. Come down and pick me up." Nyetian's lips curled into a smile. No wonder Qi Chunfeng was so excited. He had met someone from the same clan. Whoosh! At this moment, as expected, the gigantic bird swooped down with an astonishing momentum, stirring up clouds and clouds in the air. Instantly, wind and thunder howled, as though the heavens were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. "They're really here." Qi Chenfeng chuckled with a proud expression. "Get out of the way." At that moment, Nie Tian sensed that something was wrong. With a bellow, he sprang into action. Like a streak of light, he pushed the blazing wind thousands of meters away from him. Boom! At this moment, a red flame fell from the sky like a huge fireball, passing by them. This! Qi Chenfeng steadied himself. His eyes were shaking and his heart was still fluttering with fear. He only stopped these people because he wanted to catch a ride. He didn't expect these people to want to kill him. Chapter 3897. High up in the sky, the white-clothed warrior looked gloomy. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Qi Chenfeng. Qi Chenfeng's face stiffened as he felt the intense murderous intent. He was speechless. The frightening scene just now had left a lingering fear in his heart. The martial artist in white clearly wanted to kill him. But why? He was a member of the Blazing Wing clan, the same clan as the other party. He was just trying to get along. Why did the other party want to kill him? This kid thinks he's from the Blazing Wing clan and dares to stop young Master Qiu's mount. He's courting death. At this moment, a figure in green came behind the martial artist in white and stared at Qi Chenfeng cold with a sneer. I was wrong. Qi Chenfeng's eyes were trembling and his teeth were chattering. He didn't expect that blocking a mount would be such a serious crime. At this time, the white-robed martial artist named young Master Qiu opened his mouth and said coldly, What? Qi Chenfeng was stunned and confused. He didn't know what the martial artist in white meant. Your eyes. The white-robed cultivator had a cold expression as he said expressionlessly, This young master wants your eyes as an apology. This. Qi Chenfeng's eyes trembled. He didn't expect this. He had only blocked the other party's path, yet he had to pay the price of his eyes. The other party's actions were a little too cruel. Qi Chenfeng's eyes were trembling. The fear in his heart was written all over his face. He couldn't help looking at Nie Tian for help. Nie Tian watched from the side with a gloomy face. He had already sensed the martial artist in white's strength. He was a Tianyi 5th tier great sage. This strength wasn't strong, but the martial artist in white was very young. He should be much younger than Qi Chenfeng. His actual age should be below 500 years old. 500 years old was a very young age for a Saint Realm warrior. To be able to reach Tianyi 5th tier at such a young age, the martial artist in white must be very talented. What was more frightening was that the martial artist in white's aura was much stronger than Qi Chenfeng's. It should be known that Qi Chenfeng was a level 9 heavenly righteousness martial artist, and he was from the same clan as the white-clothed martial artist. However, his aura was far weaker than the white-clothed martial artist. Looking at it this way, the white-clothed martial artist was even more terrifying. At this moment, Nie Tian took a step forward and stared at the white-clothed martial artist. He did stop you, but he was just passing by. Don't you think it's too much for you to kill him the moment you arrive? At this moment, Nie Tian took a step forward and stared at the white-clothed martial artist. Too much. The white-robed Qi Qiu's gaze sank as he said coldly, He blocked this young master's mount. That is too much. This young master didn't kill him and only took his eyes. That's already very merciful. Nie Tian frowned. This person was really arrogant to the point that he was born in his mother's womb. If he wanted someone's eyes, he could say that it was benevolent. Indeed, in Qi Qiu's opinion, it was already benevolent of him to spare Qi Chenfeng. If it had been his usual style, he would have killed Qi Chenfeng, and even Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing, who were with Qi Chenfeng, would have suffered as well. He was in a good mood today as he was going to participate in the recruitment of the 5 great academies. That was why he showed mercy. What if he's unwilling? Nie Tian's eyes darkened as he said coldly. Then all of you will die. Chi Chio's eyes suddenly turned cold. When he said the word die, his aura instantly skyrocketed. Suddenly, a sea of fire appeared in the space behind him. The space around him immediately became scorching hot, like a furnace. He's from the same clan as you, yet you're still so cruel. If you meet someone else, won't you be even more cruel? Nie Tian's eyes darkened and he said directly, if you want to fight, then I'll accompany you. You, a piece of trash in the 9th tier of the heavenly mandate realm, dare to be so arrogant in front of me? Chi Chio sneered, and his eyes surged with murderous intent. Then he took a step forward, and the sea of fire behind him moved. Suddenly, it condensed into a giant flaming hand, pressing down on Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and sword intent surged from all over his body. The sword momentum was shocking, and the sword shadow whistled like a dragon, directly smashing the giant flaming hand. However, his figure was pushed back dozens of meters under the impact of the violent flame power. After repelling Nie Tian with one palm, Chi Chio's eyes were not filled with joy but deep shock. His palm just now would have killed an ordinary saint in the 5th tier of the heavenly mandate realm. However, Nie Tian only had the strength of the 9th tier of the heavenly mandate realm, and yet he was able to block his palm. This was really strange. He blocked it. How is it possible? On the fire of the Chi feather behind Chi Chio, more than a dozen young warriors of the Blazing Feather clan exclaimed in shock when they saw this scene. Obviously, they did not expect that Nie Tian could actually block Chi Chio's palm. Chi Chio was a young genius of the Blazing Feather clan. When facing warriors of the same level, he always had the upper hand. When facing warriors of a lower level, he could basically kill them instantly. However, this silver-haired warrior in front of him was obviously not simple. Just now I let you off with that palm. At this time, Nie Tian took a step forward and said in a cold tone, if you attack again, don't blame me for being impolite. Impolite? Chi Chio was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he did not expect that Nie Tian would dare to speak to him in such a tone. He immediately became furious and roared, "Brat, I want to see how impolite you can be." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Chi Chio's figure moved instantly. The sea of fire behind him became even more violent, directly condensing into a giant flaming beast. It roared like thunder and pounced ferociously, pressing down on Nie Tian. Lord Nie Tian, be careful. Chi Chenfeng's expression changed when he sensed the terrifying aura approaching, and he hurriedly cried out. He did not expect that this clansman of his would actually be so powerful. Nie Tianling stood in the void, but he was as still as a mountain. Just as the giant flaming beast was about to fall, he finally moved. The sky sword pierced straight through the void. Immediately, endless sword intent surged out, and the sword cry pierced through the clouds and rocks, penetrating everything. Bang! In the next moment the sword shadow fell. The giant flaming beast was unable to withstand the sword intent's might and directly collapsed, turning into waves of fire that dissipated. Bang! After that, Chi Chio didn't even have the chance to react at all before his figure was blasted flying, and he left behind a bloody trail in space. Young Master Chio. This shocking scene shocked everyone present on the spot. After a long time, the members of the Blazing Feather clan finally reacted and cried out in unison. In midair, Chi Chio stabilized his figure. There was a horrifying bloody hole in his chest, and half of his body was dripping with blood. If this sword had been half an inch to the side, he would have been pierced through the heart and died.